is Bettor Sports Live.
They won 3 straight games to start this series. So it was a Game 7. They stand eye to eye with history, and they did not blink. The Heat are going to the NBA Finals.
I don't call them role players. I call them teammates, because your role can change any given day, especially with how many games I've missed and, in and out of lineup, off nights, whatever you call it. We got some hoopers. We got some real deal basketball players that can score, can defend, can pass, and can win games for us.
This is Bettor Sports Live with Lisa Ann and Rick Kamla on Bettor Sports Network.
That's right. It is Wednesday night. For the next 3 hours, you get me and Rick Kamla right here on Bettor Sports Live on the Bettor Sports Network. Thank TNT for that sound. Rick Kamla, here we are. We know who is going to be playing tomorrow night, Friday, already June 1st. How you feeling about it? What are your thoughts? How are you?
Lisa Ann, what's up? I'm doing great. I hope you're doing great. Have you been traveling? Have you been touring the world? I saw you on Twitter. You were spending some time by the pool this weekend. But I'm pumped. We're one day away from the NBA Finals. We wait all year for this, LA. Here it is.
Does it ever make you kind of sad that the season is somewhat coming to an end?
Yes, Antonio Daniels expressed, I gave him a shoulder to cry on today in between a break on NBA radio, because he said, you know what, Cam? The worst part about the finals is we're about to be done with basketball. And we have the WNBA, of course. He mentioned the basketball tournament, the TBT. I don't watch the TBT. I don't care about the TBT. I'm not that starved for basketball.
What's that, the Big Three League?
So
right?
it's different, but it's like former college players that, like Syracuse as a team, UConn as a team, blah, blah, blah. It's not my thing. It is for a lot of other people. But LA, I'm stoked, man. I'm stoked. I got Heat in 7, man. I got Heat in 7.
You know what, Rick? I'm done. You know what? I'm walking off. You can do this by yourself, okay? You are still stuck on stupid that the Denver Nuggets cannot. The Denver Nuggets swept the Lakers, okay? What are you talking about? Why do you have no faith? And by the way, if it doesn't put an exclamation point on it for you, I just tweeted a story because Rocky is finally getting his flowers.
Oh, here we go.
Had a great story about him today, explaining to the world that he is the highest paid mascot. I tweeted it. I saved it this morning when I read it at my news. And the first thing I thought was, all we've been talking about is LeBron. We're talking about the Lakers. Is Kyrie going to go to the Lakers? Oh, what do the Celtics need to do? Finally, we're talking about what matters here. And that is Rocky, the absolute best mascot in all of professional sports.
On the biggest stage he's ever been on. Okay. He's never been to the NBA Finals. These Nugs are there for the first time. LA, I get it. In terms of stuck on stupid. Let me ask you a question. Who did you think was going to win Miami at Boston on Memorial Day night?
I mean, these games ended in such a fluky way. If you were talking about the last 60 seconds, you really did not think about that fluky shot going in. You thought it was going to be over. I'm glad that they gritted it out and gave us some really weird endings to some games, but it makes you wonder which team is really better when something ends that way. Even though there were games at the beginning of this series where the Celtics seemed like they totally checked out, I felt like it was a pretty even situation minus Jimmy Butler.
It was. My point is, nobody thought Miami was going to win that game except me. I, on one of my shorts, had Miami plus 345, gave it to the people plus 8.5. I was playing in the middle there a little bit, but I also gave out the money line there. I really thought Miami had a legitimate chance. The 150-0 stat when you take a 3-0 lead in an NBA playoff series, obviously now it's 151-0. So my point is, LA, the Miami Heat have been defying logic, common sense, analytics, statistic, trends, the whole thing. They didn't have as much talent as Milwaukee. It didn't matter. They didn't have as much talent as New York. It didn't matter.
Can I step back on something? They did have a little bit of luck with injuries and a little bit of bad luck with injuries as well, working in their favor.
Yeah, but I'm not, think about it. They didn't have Tyler Hero. They didn't have Victor Oladipo. So I understand what you're saying on the Boston side. Tatum turns his ankle on the first play of Game 7. Different game, okay?
Yeah.
And you had Malcolm Brogdon with the maimed right elbow, his shooting elbow, which you might have to have surgery on. I get it. We can play that game for basically every playoff run that there is. But my point is, Miami has been out-talented id in every series. And so Denver has more talent than Miami. It hasn't mattered yet. That's one of the main reasons why I like Miami to beat them here.
I thought Miami would actually come out of this series. I didn't think it was going to take that many games. And I just felt like maybe the Celtics were also, behind the scenes being outcoached, right? Because we know all about Spo and what he can do. So I thought of that. But you go into a situation now where I'm not going to worry about Russ. I listened to a great bit today about the Nuggets and Rust and the Nuggets coming off the All-Star break and how many games they won, how many tough matchups they've had, that it's not an issue with this team. So we're not looking at Rust, but are we looking at the potential burnout now because the Heat did have to play so many more games and also adjusting to the altitude and the travel?
Yeah, these are great questions, LA. I'm so conflicted on game one, and I'll explain why. Denver in this long layoff, I want to address that first. Not an issue for me. They had a long layoff in between the end of the regular season, which was for them like the Thursday of the final week, okay? And then the weekend off, and then the whole next week off for the play-in tournament, and then they got to work against Minnesota. And I know Minnesota-Miami's not a good comp here, but they drilled Minnesota by 29 points in game one of the playoffs after a long layoff. I don't think it's going to be an issue. I really don't, LA. But we have a collision of statistics here in game one, all right? Miami is 3-0 in game ones this year, all on the road, winning by an average of 9, which is staggering. Denver is
Wait, can I
3-0.
debate some of these? Can we go one at a time?
Yeah, what you got?
Okay, my rebuttal to this, as I stand up and stand alongside Rocky and in front of the Denver Nuggets, the Denver Nuggets were never one of their matchups in those series that you're giving me those stats. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay, go on with your next one.
My point is trends develop and teams follow patterns in playoffs. That's why Miami is 3-0 in game one on the road. That's their norm. They go on the road. You think you're going to beat them. The whole building is against them. And they're just like, they stick out a big middle finger at everybody and come take your money and your girl and your car. On the other side, LA, Denver is a fire-breathing dragon in game one. Okay. They're all at home. They beat Minnesota by 29. They beat Phoenix by 18, and they beat the Lakers by 6. That's an average of 18 points per game. So we have mega forces colliding here. Miami wins every game one on the road. Denver houses every game one at home. What's going to happen? I don't know, but I believe Denver's going to win this basketball game, LA.
Oh, yeah, night one at home in Denver.
I do like Miami to cover the 8.5, though, okay? I think that's a bit of a diss for this team. But LA, I can't go. The Miami road trend is really, really freaking strong, okay? But to me, the Denver home trend is just a little bit stronger. Miami just got done with a bloodbath 7-game 2-week series, right? Denver's been chilling. I do like Denver in game one, but as I said, I like Miami in 7.
I'm going Denver in 5. And I really hope that this series
I love it.
sends everyone to do better and talk about things that actually matter. I think a lot of broadcast has absolutely slipped this week, going for the easy things to talk about, like LeBron, like Kyrie, like what the Celtics need to do, and not really giving the people enough information about the Denver Nuggets themselves, the not just contributors, the role players, the bench, not just Joker. I just think we're going to learn. I think people are going to learn a lot. I think after game one, a lot of people are going to hedge their bets. They're going to go into panic. I do think the altitude is going to affect the Heat for the first run, only because they are still a bit inflamed from just playing 2 nights ago, right? So I think that's going to affect them. I think the crowd is going to be so incredibly hype. The Nuggets are going to be so ready. And to me, it's a lay down no matter what. The Nuggets get game one at home.
I agree with you. I just you tell me. I think it's going to be a relatively close game. So I'm giving Miami credit for their game one win on the road trend in taking them plus the 8.5. But like I said, ultimately, I think that Denver home trend is a little bit stronger. Do you like Miami to live inside the number, or do you think Denver's going to run away and hide?
I think Miami could live inside the number. I don't think Denver's going to run away and hide. I don't think they're going to waste fuel, right? I think once they have a decent lead, they're going to keep it. Um, I just think it's just exciting. It's exciting for Denver. And I interviewed Liv Moods, who covers Denver sports or FanDuel Sportsbook and also the Volume Sports. She's been a lifelong Denver Nuggets fan, lived there her whole life. And it's just been wild to hear the perspective of how just the energy is out there. Now, they've had a great hockey team, but the NFL team really let them down last year. So the city needs this. And I think they're going to have a great time tomorrow night. It's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch. Keep your eyes on it at halftime. Do not flip over to MLB. You must promise me that you're going to watch Rocky and all of his antics.
I for sure will. So they don't have the lady on the unicycle with the cups or the bowls. They don't like. Do they
Oh my
bring
gosh.
in like?
What is her name? Do you know her name? Because she was just on McAfee for the draft. He had her on for the draft. He had her in studio. Her name is Red Panda, and she is fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you, Heavy, to our producer behind.
But is she better than Rocky? LA? Is she better than Rocky?
Listen, they're two different trades. I bet you this though. Rocky makes better money, as I see her as probably.
I don't know. She's touring the world with those bowls. LA. I don't know.
She is. But she's most likely an independent contractor. I don't know how this works. Our agent books her. I feel like, Rocky's an employee of potentially like the
So he's
NBA.
got benefits and everything, right?
Of course he does.
Yeah,
They might even be matching his 401k. You never know.
I would be.
But look, we got a series here that you could watch the season play out. Everyone was like, the Celtics are going all the way. The Celtics had a lot of turmoil this year. The coach transitioned to this, but this is kind of exactly what we saw of the Celtics each time they get this far. They seem to fall apart. What do you think is the missing link in Boston to keep that cohesiveness? Or do you think some of these games were really fluky?
Boys, that's a good question. You know what? I don't really feel like, if anything, I felt like Boston beating Miami in Game 6 on the 10th of a second remaining putback by Derek White. That's about as fluky as it gets.
I know.
They put time back on the clock, right? It was
9 seconds.
2.1.
They put 9 seconds. And that 9 seconds, if you really want to talk about conspiracies, a lot of people talked about that 9 seconds the next day, Rick. It was a big talk of the town.
It was. So that extra time allowed Boston the tenths of a second necessary to get that putback. I didn't look at that as fluky. Well, when I'm looking at Boston, LA, first of all, I'm not breaking up the duo. I'm paying Jaylen Brown this summer. I'm not only keeping the asset, I'm keeping the asset happy. And there's a market for Jaylen Brown, even at that huge number. So if I go another year or two and want to trade him, I'm still going to be able to do that, especially the Atlanta Hawks. They're waiting on Jaylen Brown like a catcher on a fastball with that big old glove. And many other teams would as well. But they got to change the way they play offense, LA. It's too much iso ball. It's my turn, your turn. They don't really share the rock like Denver does, like Philly does, like Golden State does. It's my turn, your turn. They do run pick and roll. I don't think they run enough of it. It's too random. It's too like, you got it, you're feeling it, go. It's like the Jackie Moon offense. You remember in semi-pro, right? They pass him the ball inside. No, I'm not feeling it. And he passes back up. They dump it right back in. No, I don't have the matchup yet. That whole thing. I mean, give me a break, man. They got to change the way they play offense, LA. I think they need to bring in an offensive coordinator. How about Mike D'Antoni joining Joe Mazzulla's staff to get that offense going and get them playing together as opposed to playing in silos, which is how they play now?
I mean, that's definitely a thought. I think it is more behind the scenes than it is the talent. The talent is out there. And that, like, the last game, like you had mentioned, Jaylen Brown just lands wrong, play one. Like, right away, you're standing there going like, oh my gosh, this changes the whole game. He played through it, but it's not great. These are just the fluky things that happen. We got Byron in the room. I don't think a zone is how you play him. You have to take away the assist. That's what was the talk today. I guess the Joker's numbers are 11 assists for this game, which is kind of low for him, but taking away the assist is going to hurt Jamal as well. So Byron in the room, better boss in the room. Albert says hello. Jeff says the Celtics couldn't hit a shot to save their lives. There was a span of like 10 minutes where they couldn't hit a shot. What's that all about?
Well, again, style of play, it's too much jumper oriented. They're not even a drive to the basket and attack team. I mean, sometimes they are, but it's just a lot of settling for jump shots. And that's how you go into long scoring droughts. That's how you go 3 minutes, 0 for 9, these long stretches. Think about it, LA in game 7. They did not make a 3 in the first quarter. They started 0 of 12 from the 3 line, but kept jacking and jacking and jacking. Yet Miami increased their defensive pressure on their threes, obviously dropped them down, and you had a blowout ensue. I think you got to double team Nikola Jokic if you're the Miami Heat. It won't be exclusive and consistent, but you know what I mean? Not like every single possession like Brooklyn did on Joel Embiid. Right. I can't sleep at night if I'm Eric Spoelstra knowing Jokic hit me with a 33, 17, and 16 triple-double. I can't. Like, Gordon can beat me. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope can beat me. The Joker can't just put me on a rotisserie. He can't do that.
This is going to be a great matchup. I think we're all excited. And I think in the first quarter, we're going to all start making judgments. Who looks fresh? Who looks tired? Are they ready? And the energy is going to be electric. We've got Justin Fensterman joining us at 7:20. So I saved your props for Fensty. I thought it would be really fun to bounce these off of him, Rick. We'll go back and forth. We're going to talk to him. We'll take a quick break before then so we can just hop on with him. And I want to remind you all, go to thefantasyalarm.com. The Fantasy Football Dynasty Scratch tickets are available, written by our own Andrew Cooper, dropped this morning. Find out which players Andrew thinks are the closest to the NFL scratch-off lotto tickets. Want to know which one of these scratch-offs has the best chance of hitting the jackpot? Read the article tonight only at fantasyalarm.com. By the way, read an article yesterday. A woman thinks she won $2,000 as on a scratch-off. She goes in to cash in the $2,000. She read it wrong. She won $2 million.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Yeah, those commas are pesky, LA. Those extra commas are pesky, getting you from the thousands to the millions. Good for her, man. Well, did she collect $2,000 and the operator there kept the rest, or did she get the $2 million?
Excuse me. No, it was the operator that told her this is a $2 million ticket.
Oh, that's that's some honesty. That would have been a dilemma for a lot of us. Angel on one shoulder, devil on the other. Like, do I tell her?
Huge
I don't know.
dilemma.
I guess you got to redeem the ticket and give her all the money, man. That's
huge.
Well,
believe me. As soon as she handed it to him, he said, "Oh, a $2 million ticket." She's like, "Oh my gosh, I thought it was $2,000." We're gonna take a quick break. When we get back, we're gonna have on Justin Fensterman. We're gonna go through Ricky's props for tomorrow night's game, for Game 1 of the NBA championships. The Miami Heat going to face and lose to the Denver Nuggets. We'll be right back. You listen to Lisa and Rick Kamla right here on Bettor Sports Live on the Bettor Sports Network.
Monday Night Rants with Edward Rouse on Bettor Sports Network.
One player in minor league baseball is crushing. He has 7 home runs already, 9 games, 6 in a row, 15 RBIs, crushing almost every category in AAA baseball right now. Now, we've seen this before with Mr. Joe Adell. That's right, Joe Adell for Heavy T's, Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Joe Adell, defensive liability. I'm going to say that right now. Now, there's a lot of fantasy dynasty believers in him. I'll give you that. He is putting up numbers in the AAA level right now. But my goodness, is he going to be able to get at-bats every day? I know there's the DH, but you also have Ohtani. Is there a world where we see Adell for the Angels be called up? Probably, but come on. But do I believe it or not in Joe Adell? Listen, he does have the offensive pedigree for your fantasy teams. High prospect. He once was a high prospect, very valued. He could easily come up and put up some numbers for your fantasy teams. Just where are they going to play him defensively? That's the only issue with him. So kudos to him for what he's doing. But ultimately, you got to think his time may be limited there in Anaheim. And I know that Heavy T's not a fan.
I can't stand Joe Adell, the biggest defensive liability. But you also kind of hit the hammer on the head there as well. He can't DH because Ohtani's a DH. So what do you do? So he's performing this well in AAA. You can only do one thing. The Angels need a lot of bullpen help. Trade him while his value is high. Give me someone like Daniel Bard, maybe an Aroldis Chapman, David Bednar out in Pittsburgh. Give me somebody, a couple pieces to fix this bullpen and get this man out of the farm system. I cannot stand Joe Adell. Dude cannot catch a ball to save his life. He can't react to a ball. He's throwing balls to the Astros dugout from the outfield instead of home plate. Get this dude off my team. Cannot stand him. Don't want him. It's kind of like the Mike Singletary speech. I want winners. This guy's not a winner. Get him the hell off my team. Don't want him. Get him out of here.
Welcome to Monday Night Rants with Heavy T.
I can't with this dude. I just can't. Every time I see him in an Angels uniform and he's playing the outfield, I lose about 3 hours of my life. It's just gone, and I'm never getting it back. And
Well,
it's
good
all because
news.
of Joe
Good
Adell.
news. Good news. Only 2.5 hours this year.
That does not make me feel any better. That makes me feel worse.
Okay.
Oh my God, Joe Adell, go away.
However you're invested in sports, from betting to fantasy, collectibles, and more, join our community on Bettor Sports Network.
And here we are, Rick Kamla, myself, and as we promised, the one and only Justin Fensterman, who you can follow at Fensty Sports. You can catch him at host of Fantasy Alarm Bettorcast on SiriusXM. Justin, how are you today, buddy?
Oh, doing great. Thank you both so much for having me once again. The NBA Finals, I'm ready. I just wish it was starting today, being a little greedy. One more sleep, though, and then it all begins tomorrow night.
Hey, one more sleep, and we're down to double digits for the NFL season. Only 99 days to go. So that kind of felt great this morning, waking up and getting down into double digits. So what I did for us, Fensty, was I saved Ricky's props. I know this is something that you love to do, right?
Of course, absolutely.
Okay.
Love
I'm going to
watching his
throw them
videos.
at you, and we're going to debate these back and forth, by the way. So, I got the Nuggets in 5. I got the Nuggets tomorrow night. Rick does not still believe in the Denver Nuggets, and we're going to prove him wrong. I'm going to let them know for sure, but let's go with the first one. We got Miami's props here. These are Ricky's props. Jimmy Butler at Denver, under 27.5 points. The number is minus 125. Rick's going to give you his reason why, and you're going to tell us, Fensty, if you agree or not.
All right, so JB and his under. He's been under this number in 8 of the last 12. Obviously shredded Milwaukee, terrible defensive deployment. In the last 2 series, these 12 games, he's been under 8 times. He averaged 20.5 against Denver in the regular season, shot only 42%. The Aaron Gordon matchup, I believe, is going to lead to lower shooting percentage, lower three-point percentage, because that's what Gordon did to Karl Anthony Towns and Kevin Durant and LeBron James. But Jimmy is going to get it done in a variety of ways. I think he's going to pass more. I think he's going to rebound more. I think he's going to defend more, defer to his teammates a little bit, Fensty. So, and all of that marries with the next prop that LA will set us up into. But I think Jimmy Butler, especially in game 1, is going to be probing and evaluating and taking mental data and not just rouge and just going for it, man. So I got under 27.5, Fensty.
And I don't mind that, Rick, because we saw it at 28.5 last game. And that's a very high number for him because, as you know, he's a smart player. It's not all about the scoring for him. If he can find it better to set up his scorching hot, pun intended, for the Heat teammates, then he's going to continue to pass off because that's what he does and that's what's best for the team. So I'm with you on that. And before I joined you, I also wrote up a few props as well to see if I could be stepping with you, Rick. And you just said it. Passing more. I'm thinking that's going to happen. And Jimmy Butler's assist prop is sitting at 5.5. So I agree with you with the under rather than betting the over on Jimmy Butler points. Instead, I'm going to look to bet the over on 5.5 assists tomorrow night.
Well, Fensty, you just read my mind. Are you in here somewhere? Because the next prop here is just that. It's Jimmy Butler at Denver, over 5.5 assists. The number is minus 145, and I agree with that completely. That's where the money's going to be made tomorrow night because that's what he's going to have to balance it out with. And I want to ask you, Fensty, do you think the altitude's going to have an effect, especially after the Heat have played so many more games than the Nuggets?
I mean, I think it'll have a little bit of an effect, but I think the fatigue is going to be even more impactful for this Heat team. That's why, Lisa, I'm with you. I'm thinking that Denver is not only going to win this series in 5 games, maybe 6 games max, but also they're going to take game 1. And I know Miami's come to play. And if there's anything about Miami we've learned, they are definitely built for a marathon. This team just has a way of not going away. So does that scare me a little bit when I'm seeing a spread like 8.5 points? It does, but we know how potent this Denver offense is. And just like the Heat have some weapons that can shoot from the outside, Denver can as well. And I'm more reliant on Denver on the rest with their offense than Miami's offense, which has been ultimately up and down for the most part. So with that, I'm thinking tomorrow night when it comes to this game, I'm thinking that the Heat are going to be more fatigued, if anything, and the altitude just makes me scared off of them a little bit more. And it's real, by the way, because I'll say this from personal experience. I don't know why, but when I went to Denver, the one time I've ever been to Denver, for some reason, I couldn't sleep more than 2 hours a night. And I had no idea why. So the altitude impact is real there.
It is definitely real. And also, don't drink your first night you land in that altitude either.
Good luck with that.
A little piece of advice. I've done the study myself, and it does affect you much greater. And your hangover is absolutely terrible. All caps. All caps. Let's go to the next one. We got Caleb Martin at Denver, under 16.5 points. The number is -120. What you got for us, Rick?
So I love Caleb Martin. I love what he's done in these playoffs. Love his story, but I gotta fade him, especially in this game. Coming off a career series against Boston, Fensty, LA. You guys both know my career year theory, my career game theory. I guess that construes to a career series angle as well. He averaged 19 points and 6 rebounds and shot 60% from the floor against Boston. Almost won Eastern Conference Finals MVP over Jimmy Butler. This is still Caleb Martin we're talking about, guys, okay? I don't think I've ever seen a role player have more of an out-of-body experience, honestly, in a 7-game series than I just saw. Boston played drop coverage against Caleb Martin the entire series. If Joe Mazzulla were in year 4 or 5 and miss after miss after miss, I'd be calling for his job over that, like I did with Coach Bud after his horrible coaching job in the first round. But okay, he's a rookie head coach. I'll give him the pass. But it was terrible, and it allowed Caleb Martin to just go bat, 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 wide open all the time, buck naked, frankly, all the time. Denver is going to guard him, honestly, I believe, with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and he's going to drop his numbers down. So under 16.5 points, Fensty at -120. That's a big number heading into game one for Caleb Martin, I think.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Rick. And this will also be interesting, too, throughout the series because Caleb Martin, for those that continue to wager on him last series, was a cash cow. However, with Tyler Hero looking like he's going to be back at some point in this series, that's going to start taking shots away from him. So it's almost like with Caleb Martin, it's going to be a no bet either way, Rick, for me. Because especially with what I'm thinking Caleb Martin's mindset is, he knows that Heroes is on his way back, and they've got other shooters like Duncan Robinson, who have been, in the words of Rick Kamla. Rick, I don't know why, ever since I've heard you say this, maybe a year ago, I'm using it more. So I got to give you some kind of finder's fee. Activate, like saying a player is activated. I feel like I'm on the Nickelodeon show Guts or something like that. So I'm using that a lot more. So you know that Tyler Hero, once he's activated and he's going to have his shots activated, then I'm wondering what that's going to mean for Martin's shot. So I'm almost feeling like he's in audition mode. But the question is, how well can he shoot? So if you want to bet the under, we've seen him go under this number, not the last few games. I'm okay with it, but if it were me, I'm staying away from Caleb Martin because I'm going to be holding my popcorn and waiting and seeing just who's able to get the edge when it comes to specific players in game one here.
Well, we've got another Caleb Martin here, Ricky's props. We've got the under 24.5 for the combo points, which is rebounds, the combo points, rebounds, and assists. The number is -105. From what I'm gathering from you, Fensty, even though you would stay away, this would definitely be an under for you as well.
Yeah, it would. I mean, the rebounding has been all over the place. We can't only go by what we saw the last few games because this is a completely different series and Denver's been able to D up. And that's the big thing here. And they know going in just how hot of a shooter Caleb Martin is. And Caleb Martin being as active as he was in the glass, I just don't see that happening. I think Denver's more disciplined, especially at the elbow as well. And we're seeing a lot of Caleb Martin, longer rebounds at the top of the paint. I don't think Denver is going to give up as much leverage for positioning in the paint that Boston did, being that it's a new series. So for me, I'd rather go under with something like that and not chase the boards that we've had the last 2 games with him.
27 PRA for Caleb Martin against Boston, 19-6-2. This is such a departure from who he is. Just is. And there's got to be a correction. So 27 PRA against Boston. Keep that number in mind. 16 PRA against New York, 10-5-1. 18 PRA against Milwaukee, 11-5-2. Again, love him. He's a fantastic player. I think he has become the Miami Heat's forward of the present and future. I mean, you're in the finals with him. I mean, he literally is a huge reason why you're there as well. So, with him, Gabe Vincent, and obviously Hero, Butler, and Bam, I think they're good to go for a nice little window of winning right here. All of that said, I got to fade Caleb Martin here in game 1.
And I hear you on that. And that's where I'm going as well. I'm not going to be betting a single prop on Caleb Martin, which is why I'm looking for other ways, again, to get that edge, like Jimmy Butler's assists. And a lot of people are going to be focused on points in this game. We'll focus on the other areas as well. Like you said, Rick, Butler, he's going to be the prime target for Denver's defense. Why wouldn't he be passing off more? And that's why I'm loving the assist line where it is. And when I'm thinking about where I'm going, if anything points related, maybe looking at something low, especially in the first 2 games for Duncan Robinson. 8.5 points. It looks easy, but it's not that easy for him. But you got to be thinking that because Denver is going to be able to hit their threes, the Heat are going to have to match it. They're shooting poorly up front. Duncan Robinson is going to have to come in. But I want to give Duncan Robinson a little bit more credit because you're seeing the 1.5 threes on DraftKings Sportsbook, a bit juiced up, but that looks nice. But he's not only camping out at the arc. We've seen him drive the lane a little bit. We've seen him have the court vision that if he can get a leg up on whoever the defender is and not get crushed to the ground, he'll go up with the ball as well. Not so much, but if I'm thinking this guy could sit there and take an 8 to 10 shots, 8.5 points, even though Denver's defense is a bit better on the perimeter, as we've seen, I'd still rather go that direction than someone like Caleb Martin, who is going to be the second prioritized player, even in front of Bam, in my opinion, from Denver's defense.
All right, let's go to the Joker. It's finally time for us to talk about the Denver Nuggets. This one is over 9.5 assists. The number is -145. This must have come down because when I checked it this morning, it was 11. 9.5. I would definitely take the over on that one since he's averaging over 11. I was thinking about the over with 11. Rick, let's talk about it.
So yeah, when I'm trying to think here, I'm confused because I did this a day or 2 ago. I'm pretty sure it was, and it was 10.5. Okay, and I'm pretty sure it was -145. I got a lot of numbers in here, but I'm pretty sure. And so I don't understand money coming in on the under on Jokic at 10.5 assists to the point where we're down at a 9.5 number. Maybe you guys can check it right now. I checked it just a little while ago. If it's still a 9.5, bang this so hard, people, at a -145. He's been over this number in 7 of the last 8 overall, over this number in 3 straight at home. And when you're at home, your others make shots at a higher degree than they do on the road, okay? And plus with the long break, these guys aren't going to be jacking up bricks because they're out of rhythm and, oh, my God, they've had all this time off. It's all the NBA does is try to get their players off the floor. So this just marries with load management. Nah, these guys are going to be out there and playing well, I think, and they're going to be hitting the shots that Jokic delivers to them off the passes. So, Finsty, I don't know about you, but this is one of those like double eye zoom scenarios here when I saw that number fall from 10.5 to 9.5.
Yeah, and I just checked up on it too. It is at 9.5 at -145 on DraftKings. So not only am I interested in that, but I want to take it a step further, and I want to get your take. You're going to pass the ball back to your court and see what both of you think of this. Jokic triple-double is at +100 right now.
Ooh.
I mean, look, if we're thinking
I like that
he
a lot,
could go
Vincent.
over the 9.5, easily outside of injury or getting thrown out of the game for some odd reason, he's going to hit double figures in points. I mean, is Bam Adebayo really going to be the one to keep this guy out? I mean, look, we even saw in limited minutes what Robert Williams could do inside against Bam, and that's limited minutes. Jokic, at this point, Jokic, you're going to be thinking it's going to be playing 38 to 40 in this game easily. So I'm actually thinking not only, Rick, that I like the over, and Lisa, that I like the over on the 9.5, but I also am thinking about wagering before the odds get worse. Plus 100 on his triple-double, and he got one against Miami earlier in the year.
Man, that's it's hard to pass that number up. You don't get it that often. We got another one.
If anybody else can do it, it's him.
We got another one here for the Joker, over 13.5 rebounds.
So, and what's crazy about that awesome wager idea that Fensty just brought us? We're talking about Nikola Jokic triple-double against a really good defensive team being an even bet or a chalky type of bet. That's insanity, okay? I don't think that's ever happened with any other player before in league history, just to amplify the greatness of this guy, Nikola Jokic. But yeah, over 13.5 boards here. He's been over this number in all 3 game ones. So far, players follow trends. Teams follow trends. He's been at 21 boards, 19 boards, and 14 boards in the 3 game ones so far. Miami was 27th in rebounding during the regular season. They've been out-rebounded in every series they've played so far. And I think rebounding is going to be a big storyline, Fensty. Bam Adebayo can't rebound with Nikola Jokic, and Bam is by far the biggest Miami Heat player. That could really be an issue for Miami. And again, I have Miami in 7. A lot of it is just magic, okay? Because they are completely defying the numbers.
Let's stop. We saw our guest here had a reaction to that. So what was the reaction of the wow there, Fensty? Is it that you don't think it's going to go 7? Is it that you think the Nuggets are better than I think Rick Kamla thinks Nuggets are? Because you say... I say 5 Nuggets. You said how many?
And I'm with you there. 5 of 6 max. And I don't want to disrespect the Heat, but I just think that Denver is on another level. And the story for Miami has been excellent. They've been grinders. We've seen their shooting come through, but we've also seen what Denver can do, what they do, except better. And Bam has looked pretty lost in games at times too. And when it comes to someone like Nikola Jokic, I mean, we know about the scoring, but please, we're talking triple-double. We're talking about potentially betting over 13.5 boards. This guy is going to get it done in the post, and the Heat don't have the muscle to stop him. So, Rick, I mean, look, I know you're a South Florida guy. I know you're loving the story with Miami. How can you deny him with Jimmy Buckets here? But we can't forget that even Denver, in my opinion, going into the playoffs, they were being disrespected. Everyone was focusing on the Lakers. Everyone was focusing on the Warriors. Everyone was focusing on Phoenix. And I felt like Denver, as the 1 seed who's been sitting at the top for the entire year, wasn't getting that kind of love either. So I think Denver's got their own story in here. So, Rick, I'm a bit surprised that you're not going Denver. And I'm not even saying this because you're a South Florida guy. I thought that you'd be going Denver. If I hadn't known or I hadn't been listening to you before I came on here and had an inkling, I would have said Rick would say Denver in 6.
Look, I'm not sleeping on Denver. I'm not disrespecting Denver. I know everything I know all I need to know about Denver. They are a juggernaut. They're a phenomenal basketball team, and they might win a championship. The key word is might. Everybody assumed Boston was going to beat Miami in Game 7. How'd that go? Everybody assumed Milwaukee was going to beat Miami in round 1. How'd that go? Everybody assumed the Knicks were going to beat the Heat in round 2.
I don't think that. I disagree with that. As a Knicks fan, I was nervous about this team. And so
but you're bringing in sort of the bias and the provinciality, and I don't have any of that. The South Florida thing, it's a coincidence. You know, I'm in suburban Tampa, so I don't like favor the Heat. I don't cheer for the Heat. I don't have Heat gear. This is about the Heat having the best intangibles in the NBA. This is about the Heat being more than the sum of their parts. And like I said, and it's one of these things. It's kind of magical what they're doing right now. They are on a Cinderella run, and I don't see it stopping right now. And Jimmy Butler has outwilled every opponent so far. And I believe he's going to outwill Denver in terms of just aura and just being that guy, that villain strutting in the arena. Denver doesn't have swag and edge like Jimmy Butler does. And I think that's going to be one of the reasons Miami wins.
Right. And by the way, Rick, I don't mean any disrespect or anything because look.
Oh, don't worry. We've been going through this half the season. I've been preaching Denver for a long time.
I don't
now.
want
Don't
Rick
worry about it.
I don't, because trust me, I mean, Lisa, ton of respect for you, ton of respect for Rick as well. And I don't want to say that Rick has any bias from where he lives or anything like that. I just think because this isn't a normal 1 seed, Denver. They've been getting disrespected. You would think with the respect that they've gotten throughout the playoffs that they were a 4 or 5 seed. That's really what it comes down to. And they've proven it to us all year that if they stay healthy, guys like Murray, guys like Porter, and one of the things I've loved about Denver, which is making me go more in on them and have more confidence, we're not just seeing Michael Porter sit there at the arc. He's going all in with his body. He knows of the nerve damage he suffered, the back that started out his career that was hurt. He's going all in, and I'm seeing him attack the lane more. And that's one of the big things here now, as opposed to before the playoffs. If you ask me saying, hey, Butler's going to be matching up with Michael Porter, I would think it'd be an easier matchup if he's camping out at the arc. We're seeing this guy attack, and I think Porter's going to make Jimmy Butler work on both sides of the ball.
All right, we got 2 more here. We've got Jamal Murray versus Miami. Under 25.5 points. The number is -120.
So LA and Fensty, I think Gabe Vincent's going to be a buzzkill for Jamal Murray. It's one of the reasons why I've got Miami winning this series. Jamal is averaging 27.7 points on shooting splits of 48 field, 40 from 3, and 92 from the line. You don't defend the free throw line, but the 48 and the 40, they're coming down against Miami. 27.7, that's coming down against Miami. And the reason is Gabe Vincent. And obviously you have a bunch of other terrific defenders. Kyle Lowry will be defending Jamal Murray a lot. And he's roly-poly and he's old, but he can still defend, take charges, and be grimy. Think about this, guys. Over the last 5 regular season meetings, Jamal Murray against Miami, he's averaging 15 points per game. This is over the last 5 matchups, which goes back to 2018. He does not play well against the Miami Heat. And Gabe Vincent's playing at a very, very high level right now on both ends. So I think Vincent's going to be a problem for Murray, and I will fade Jamal Murray in game 1, Fensty.
I'm on the same page as you. Just thinking with a little bit maybe of a slower pace for him as well. It's not going to be easy for him to go on as many runs. Unlike the Lakers, like you said, Rick, the Heat are more mature. And Kyle Lowry definitely visiting the fountain of youth over the last number of games for him as well. He's able to keep up with his assignment, whoever it is. I'm as shocked as anyone about that. And he's had health issues over the year too, which I think have slowed him down. Now his body's feeling better. And you mentioned it as well, Gabe Vincent. We saw the impact with him not on the floor, just how poor defensively the Heat became. So with him out there now, I'm with you. And again, this is why with some of these studs with the points, guys like Jokic, Murray, Butler, that's why I'm not as keen on taking the overs on those points here, because I just want to wait and see who from a player's standpoint has that edge, who's getting the open lane. And that's something we're all going to learn about in game 1 here. So I'm with you.
And last but not least, let's talk about Bruce Brown versus Miami, over 11.5 points. The number is +105.
So he's been over this number in 5 of the last 6. He's rolling. This is the best Bruce Brown has ever played in his life right now in this moment. 9 of 15 in the playoffs, he's been over. So very, very strong over trends here. 14.5 points against Miami in the regular season. Played his college ball at Miami, so he's going to be fired up when he gets down there too. But role players play better at home. And so 11.5 is a very reachable number for him. So over on Bruce Brown. And Fensty, as I get it over to you to see if you want to co-sign this one or not, I just want to make a point off what you just made about game 1 to game 2 and the bounce back factor. It is so much more difficult to speculate and prognosticate on props going into a series, okay? Because game 1, how well does Bam defend Jokic? How well does Jokic defend Bam? Is Gabe Vincent on Jamal Murray going to be a problem or not? We're going to get a lot of answers on matchups and where the advantages are and where they aren't. And I just want to alert people, as you were, Fensty, to the fact that you're going to have bounce back factors. If Jamal Murray has a subpar game 1, take the over in game 2, okay? If Jokic scores 19 in game 1, you bet your damn butt he's going over in game 2, right? If Jimmy Butler has 15 with 1 steal in game 1, you bet your butt he's going to be approaching 30 points with like 4 or 5 steals in game 2. So there's going to be major bounce back factors for us and real money-making opportunities.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying here with the role players, because those point props are much lower than those superstars that we have in this series. And that's why not only am I going to co-sign Bruce Brown, because he should take, I know he didn't last game, but he should take double-digit shots. I'm thinking he's going to be somewhere in the 9 to 12 range. I'm also thinking of betting Contavious Caldwell-Pope.
Yeah, me too.
Shooting too. If you're going to tell me this guy's going to be playing close to 40 minutes or at least 35, he's at 10.5 points as well. And his threes are at over 1.5, and he's been very efficient. So that's why I feel like we could get a little bit of an advantage here, lower point totals with guys like these role players like Brown and KCP. That's where I'm looking when it comes to point prop betting.
I like it. I think this series is going to be an eye-opening experience for everyone. And I think we're going to learn a lot about that much rest. You know, you have the back and forth. Rick and I were talking about it before you came on, Justin. There's people in the mindset of like, hey, could be rust, right? Rust versus rest. I see it completely differently, and I don't really think anything's changed in Denver. And the way they cruised with consistency through the season and the synergy that they have on the court really reminds me of the Warriors, say 5 years ago. You know, that gel, the way they're in it to win it. And not that Miami isn't, but I just think the vibe is so completely different being in a situation for a team that had all this rest, that it's their team's very first time ever there. Like, there's just so many big moments wrapped around this whole ordeal.
Absolutely. And one of the things you mentioned, those Warriors teams that have been successful, whether it was last year or 5 years ago. I mean, we know obviously about the Currys and everything like that, who are just such great scorers, but who were some of the key players last year? Andrew Wiggins. 5 years ago, Andre Iguodala. It's these wing players here, and that's where Denver has a lot of that. Aaron Gordon, I've had a lot of criticism throughout his career. Not all his fault. I always thought, kind of like Tobias Harris, much better attacker than shooter from downtown. We're seeing him get inside, and because we're seeing him get inside, we know he can attack and he can bang on the boards here if he's against Bam or if he's against any of their other forwards. Aaron Gordon's been able to get positioning in the paint here. Michael Porter, like I said, we've seen him attack more too. Bruce Brown, the impact he has. These wings are the difference makers, and the Heat have them too. But Denver has at least 3 deep in that department, and that's what I think is going to propel them here.
Finsty, is Nikola Jokic the best player in the world?
I think he is. I think he should have been MVP. I was on that train. You go back to various tape and everything. And when you saw the odds shifting, in my opinion, there are 2 reasons why Nikola Jokic didn't win MVP. Number one, the voters didn't want to give it to him for a 3rd time. How dare we put him in the same category with the great Larry Bird, who also had help, by the way, winning those titles when he did. Just saying, no disrespect. But also, when it came to Jokic, I feel like he lost his momentum simply because he was injured. He had a sore calf, and it was keeping him out of the final few games. When you saw Denver and Philly match up and Embiid didn't play, you saw those odds shift right back to Jokic. Jokic was robbed of that MVP. Not saying Embiid doesn't deserve it, but you're asking me, Rick, who the best player in this league is, and that's Nikola Jokic. He proved it again this year, should have been MVP. That calf injury at the end of the season, I think, pushed the voters more towards Embiid.
Lisa, if I could just make a quick point with both of you guys here. I feel like, because Jokic was the guy. Tim Bontemps ran a straw poll, I don't know, 6 weeks, 2 months left in the regular season. Jokic was going to win a 3rd straight. I think that there was such a strong narrative created by ESPN talking heads and others with major platforms. They were looking for the first sign of weakness or the first blip on the radar for Nikola Jokic. And you remember, Finsty, when Denver was winning, and they went on a quick 4-game losing streak, right? What is wrong with Denver? Everybody, oh my God, what is wrong with Denver? It's an 82-game season, and there's ebbs and flows. The Boston Celtics lost back-to-back to Orlando at home, okay? Stuff happens. I thought people totally overreacted to that, but people were looking for any possible way to take shots at Jokic and build up the case for Joel Embiid. And I think that had a lot to do with the overall voting and the overall shift, Fensty.
I'm with you there. And that's why, again, look, Embiid had a phenomenal season, a great season. But when it comes down to it, I think if you're looking at the season as a whole, I thought Jokic was a little bit more impressive. I wanted that head-to-head matchup. We didn't get it. Embiid was out that game, and you saw the odds shift back to Jokic after that. And that's why I think with what you said and what I said as well with the calf, I think that ruined his momentum at the tail end of the season.
That was weak sauce by Joel not to play in that game, by the way.
Yeah, it was so well. We were looking forward to that
sauce.
game for weeks, and then all of a sudden it's like pulling the carpet out from under us, man. And that stunk.
They don't care about us, Fensty. LA, they don't care about us.
No, they don't care about us. How about we shift gears for a couple minutes before we let Justin go, who you all can follow at Fensty Sports, who you can get more information, host of Fantasy Alarm Bettorcast on SiriusXM, talks a lot of MLB with my boy Adam Ronis, fellow Mets fan. Let's talk about the perfect landing place for DeAndre Hopkins.
Ooh, man. I mean, you're seeing with what you're seeing right now with, is he going to chase the ring or is he going to go after the money? I mean, for him, I'm thinking maybe if he could get himself a nice short-term deal and win a ring, then next year it lands him an even bigger deal potentially too. Maybe he goes to Kansas City. Can Kadarius Toney be that number one guy? That decision might not have to be made. You bring Hopkins there. So I'm with him going to Kansas City. And I know everyone's probably booing me for saying that right now, but naturally it seems like the best fit. Get Mahomes a huge weapon in Hopkins.
Yeah, and if he wants that ring, that's where he's got to really go to chase it. And at the same time, there's that balance between chasing that ring and hoping that you can stay healthy for a whole nother year at that age to get that money. I think the perfect fit is Cleveland. I think you pair him back up with Deshaun Watson. Think about what a team they have. So they have Amari Cooper, right?
Yep.
Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, then you got Nick Chubb.
Yep.
Okay. It sounds like a pretty good offense. And I think there's going to be high expectations for Watson this season. I think he's going to play lights out football because he kind of has to at this point. He's had the time to get back in the rhythm. And I just think, that was such a devastating breakup when the Texans, took away Watson's greatest receiver, and his career has been the same since that move.
No, and I'm with you there. And here's the other thing, too, with Watson, too. If he's going to be on the run, which he tends to be throughout his career, I mean, Hopkins going out 10 yards, you're not looking for the deep pass when it comes to DeAndre Hopkins. He burns you going 10 yards out, and then he'll explode off the tackle. That's what he does. So for short passing for Hopkins, that would be a very nice marriage back together. So I guess a remarriage between Hopkins and Watson. So he could use the target to go 10 yards out and then be able to get rid of the football. Hopkins is that guy. He's not a deep.
I mean, real quick, Rick, I'm sure Adam Ronis would like him to go to our Dallas Cowboys. That's been a part of the conversation too, but I'm just thinking about Hopkins more than myself. All right, Rick, it's your floor.
I love the idea that you just brought to the table here. The Browns are in the whole Watson and Nuke connection. I thought that was fantastic. I'm a nerd. So for my Mad Dog shows, and I ranked, the teams that need him most, the teams that he fits best with, and all that kind of stuff. And look, to me, this thing condenses to the Chiefs and the Bills, because the Vikings could use him, the Ravens could use him, the Browns could use him. There's a lot. The Giants could use him. There's a lot of teams that could use Nuke Hopkins. Okay, but to me, Kansas City and Buffalo and Cincinnati, who doesn't need Nuke, obviously, are the three mega powers of the AFC. Okay, if Kansas City gets Nuke Hopkins, I'm going to be like, they just won the AFC, okay? Because right now I'm kind of like, they probably are going to win the AFC, but I don't know. I don't really like their receiving core, okay? You get Nuke Hopkins, done. Forget about it. They're in the Super Bowl. If Buffalo gets him, they're the Bills, okay? So it's always something with this team. So I'm not just going to, they're in the Super Bowl. But I'd be a lot higher on them with Nuke than I would be without Nuke, okay? So, Fensty, I think he's a real pivot point for the AFC here, if he goes to the Chiefs or the Bills. The question for you is, do you agree with that? Do you think Nuke Hopkins is still good, like really good, like 90 grabs, 1,100 yards, 8, 9, 10 touchdowns, good? I think he still has that in him with the right QB and the right system. Do you?
Yeah, and I questioned it as well going into, when he came off suspension last year. And then we saw him be able to perform at that level with him, a subpar quarterback play. So imagine putting him with one of these big guns out here, like a Mahomes, like a Josh Allen. I mean, we've seen him succeed with Deshaun Watson as well. It just makes sense. So I still believe in him, Rick.
And here we are. We're talking NFL. I mean, 99 days away. I think we see Zeke has been putting a ton of workout footage out there. I wonder if he thinks that.
Because if he didn't, it never happened, right, LA?
I wonder if he thinks that the owners and the coach that are at mini camps and all those people are just like trolling social media, like looking for Zeke. We know he's out there. I'll ask you, and then Rick, what your thoughts are. Do you think Zeke's going to play for a team this season? And follow up, two-part question. Do you think he'll get brought to a team before the season starts, or do you think he's going to be in a situation due to injury, gets called up?
My prediction, I don't know who it's going to be. I'm thinking it's going to be a late July signing. Team's going to realize the depth they have. They're going to kick the tires on him, see if he can come in there. Because one of the things we saw with Zeke, look, he was able to get into the end zone. So not having that 3-down role will probably be more beneficial for a guy like him who's taken the wear and tear. So I see a team signing him late July.
I think, look, I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying. I think to LA's point, it might take an injury because a lot of the running back rooms are full. Most of them are full. And obviously youth rules at that position. So, I think it's going to have to be like, God forbid, a lightning bolt down on the ACL of a running back in training camp, which, guys, we know it's going to happen. Okay?
Yeah, of course.
It's
I'm surprised we haven't heard
happen.
anything major yet. We haven't heard anything yet.
Exactly. So I think the lightning bolt's going to come down and they're going to holler at Zeke Elliott. I really think he's going to have an injury to get back in. But Fensty, look, we're basically married with our weird reference. Sorry about that. We're basically in alignment here. With we love fantasy sports, all right, but we're basically in alignment here. I think Zeke will be, but look, teams obviously don't feel that urgency and that hunger right now, right? Because they like what they have, or maybe they just want to play out the process a little bit. But I don't really think we're playing out the process here. I think teams are like, either I like what I had or I'm going to go get Zeke Elliott. He's been free the whole offseason. So I think it's going to take an injury to get him back in.
I would agree with that as well. Fensty, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tell everyone where they can find everything that you're working on right now.
Yeah, you can find all my work. Thank you both so much again for having me. You can find all my work at fantasyalarm.com and on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Monday through Thursday, Fantasy Alarm Bettorcast. We just go through all the live action. And hey, we always track everybody's bets. DFS plays season long. Adam Rodas and I have you covered here, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern.
Thank you so much. When we get back, we're going to be joined by Paul Charchian. You're listening to Lisa Ann and Rick Kamla right here on Bettor Sports Live on the Bettor Sports Network.
Moose and Keith, weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Bettor Sports Network.
Calvin Ridley yesterday, he applied for reinstatement from the National Football League.
Ridley, Kirk, Zay Jones, Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence. That is crazy potent on offense.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I mean, Ridley's great.
I think Trevor Lawrence is a guy I want in fantasy this year.
I think you're probably right. I think they're just going to get better and better. First off, Peterson's a wonderful offensive mind, a great head coach, and we've seen that and saw that this year as Jacksonville made it to the postseason. And Trevor Lawrence, anybody that questioned whether or not he could play in the National Football League or just how good he was going to be in the NFL, those questions were answered this past season as in the second half of the year. Statistically speaking, he was a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. That's how good Trevor Lawrence is. You throw Calvin Ridley into the mix, he's going to be great. Yeah, I think Lawrence is a guy you want. I think Ridley's a guy you want. Clearly, Travis Etienne is going to be one of those early, first-round selections as well, being the dual-threat running back that he is, not only running, but also catching the ball out of the backfield, Keith, and the ability to take something small and take it to the house. Take a 5-yard dump pass, make a guy miss in the open field, and he's gone. I mean, you saw that with Travis Etienne this past season for Jacksonville. Yeah, sky's the limit. I mean, I think you're going to go from a team in the year span where you wanted no part of the Jacksonville Jaguars when you're looking at fantasy football to where you want as many Jaguars as you possibly can because they're going to be really, really productive. And let's see if they get their tight end back as well. Who had
Evan Ingram was great.
And Evan Ingram, who was great this past season.
Yeah. I mean, if they keep that whole core together, their offense is going to be one of the best in football. Like, I legitimately think that they could be one of the best offenses in football.
Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, then you
And
throw
Ridley.
Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence, a good offensive line, and you've got Doug Peterson being creative calling.
Right?
And you look at that division. The Colts are a mess.
Yep.
Titans
look like they're on the downslide.
Titans are on a downslide, right? That window is clearly closed. And then you got the Houston Texans.
Years away from relevancy.
Yeah.
I mean, Jacksonville could win 11 games next year.
Moose and Keith. Weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Bettor Sports Network.
And we are back with you right here, Lisa Ann and Rick Kamla, Bettor Sports Live on the Bettor Sports Network. I want you to get all pro access to Fantasy Alarm for the award-winning DFS playbook covering 10 different sports, fantasy football and NFL betting, plus tools, podcast, and Discord chat. For a limited time, get all of this for 50% off your first 6 months with promo code ALARM50. Again, that's ALARM50 at fantasyalarm.com. Start your free trial today and match up to $100 using promo code FANTASYALARM at fantasyalarm.com/underdog. Yeah, it looks like we are, and here we are. We've got Paul just joining the room like we had promised. We got Paul Charchian. You can follow at Paul Charchian. Look up everything on guillotineleagues.com. And Paul, I'm so excited to hear that you were just like on an adventure. You were just camping for 2 weeks. Please tell Rick and I about this.
Yeah, and Rick knows me well enough to know that I'm really an avid indoorsman. So this was kind of a stretch for me. And,
fair to partly bougie? Can we say that?
Yeah, you really can. I can't
Me
fight
too.
that.
Guilty as charged. I'm sorry.
Okay, to be clear, when I say I went camping for 2 weeks, it was not in a tent. My wife and I bought a camper, and we took the camper from Minneapolis to Colorado. And the camper's got HD TV, and it's got a microwave and stove and, the whole bit. So, that made it a lot easier. But it was our first time trying to go up and downhill the Rockies pulling a trailer. And that is no small feat for suburban indoor guy going down an 8% grade for 8 miles with a 6,000-pound trailer bearing down on your truck. It is. I'm lucky to be here, honestly.
Oh my God, is that a great story? Charch, me and the first regime, when we were in Minneapolis together, we made a couple of visits out to Red Rocks, right? To see, Blues Traveler. Why, we were working together at the time, right? And so we eventually moved out to Colorado. Charch, the day that we moved to Colorado from Eden Prairie, Minnesota, it was minus 47 degrees. That did not include wind chill. I am not making this up. We had to move in that weather. And so obviously the drive from Minnesota to Colorado is pretty damn cool. Like it to me, it's very enjoyable. There's a lot of open space. You can really let your mind drift. But you telling that story about the travel out to Colorado, I had to give you that one, man. 47 degrees below zero. I've never experienced anything like that. I think I'm still frostbit.
That is that's a very Minnesota story.
One of the
right
reasons
there.
I'm out, George.
So I see here you sent us a little Guillotine League cheat sheet. So I think the first thing we should always do is explain to our listeners what a Guillotine League is.
Yeah, so the Guillotine League is a different kind of season-long fantasy league. The premise works like this. You start with 18 teams because there's 18 weeks of the season, and there's no head-to-head. Instead, every week, the lowest scoring team gets chopped, and all the players go to the waiver wire where everybody else is just pandemonium, right? So, here comes, maybe in a bad week, Travis Kelce and Garrett Wilson and, I don't know, like Miles Sanders and Tony Pollard and, I don't know, Lamar Jackson. I mean, that hits the waiver wire. And it's crazy as you try to figure out when to spend your fab money, when to hold it, how long can you go, and all you have to do is not finish last. The last team standing wins the whole thing. That's the premise of the Guillotine League.
It's a ton of fun, and I absolutely think it's a really unique way to play, to stay focused on the season, and it could be just so fluky that you have a great lineup and they all had an off week and you're done.
Yeah, and that's part of the deal with the Guillotine League is your draft strategy really changes. You don't want the high.
Oh, I think we're frozen there in time. Rick, do you play in any of the Guillotine Leagues?
And caught Charchian a very compromising still shot right there. Charch, if I could have taken a screenshot of that, you were like it was hilarious. like the stuck face that you just had right there was absolutely hilarious. So really, Guillotine Leagues are the anti-best ball leagues. Okay, best ball, you're taking a once a month guy, right? The Deshaun Jackson type that'll give you the 5 for 120 and 2, and then 3 weeks of nothing. Like, he's a best ball guy. You don't want those guys. You want like guaranteed touches, guaranteed role. Okay, like if all hell breaks loose, then I'm screwed. But you try to mitigate that. And Charch, you can take this a lot farther than I can. With really trying to prioritize reliable and consistent players. That's how I view it.
Yeah, in the Guillotine League, Kirk Cousins is gold, right? I mean, just he's not going to get you cut because he's never going to show up with a 190-yard, 0 touchdown passing effort. So I mean, we love guys like Miles Sanders.
Well, a little bit better of a spot there for the freeze. Internet must not be the friend of our friend Paul today. Do you play in any of these? How many of these are you in, Rick, if any?
I have played in Paul Charchian's Guillotine League, and I'm probably going to, hopefully he invites me back. But I played in Charch's leagues. Honestly, I have not done well, LA. And I have drafted for reliability and consistency. Okay. And I've just early in the season hit that week where your quarterback sucks. You're running there. Your wide receiver got hurt in the first quarter. Your tight end, you thought he was going to have a good game and a great matchup, and he had 2 catches for 15 yards. There's a lot of luck involved with Guillotine League.
Yeah, a lot of luck. A lot of luck. It's definitely, I think, less skill than luck. Like, yeah, it's great to have a great draft, but anything can really happen. Injury can hit you as well. I think he's going to come back in here and join us. So I was going to invite you in some best ball leagues that I'm hosting this month. I'm doing one a day for 30 days. You can't. They're $5 buy-ins. Guess what? That's considered gambling where you live. You are in a non-gambling state. All right, we were back with Paul, and while we have him, Paul, guillotineleagues.com. When do you start drafting?
We just went live for the 2023 season 2 days ago. So game on. Drafts are happening now. So yes, it's a convenient timing that you've got me on the show right after we launched. So yes, that is it is time to start drafting Guillotine Leagues. And the advantage of drafting now is I think there's a lot, if you're really paying more attention now, the casuals really aren't. If you're the kind of person that, well, honestly, the kind of person who listens to this show, then watches this show, then you're probably the right kind of person to have a better draft now than when everybody sort of catches up to all the trends.
And there we go again. I think we're frozen in time one more time. This doesn't look like it's working out incredibly well. We'll keep trying. So yes, I cannot invite you because that is not able in your state, even though my good friend Jeff just said that he would go over the border for you in Virginia somewhere.
Thank you, Jeff. Wow.
Script Daddy.
I mean, that is very,
and by the way,
so much. Appreciate it.
Scrimp Daddy, you just joined Fantasy Alarm 2 weeks ago. I know you're going to love all of the information you cannot get. You can bet inside the stadiums this season. Yes, that's going to be very, very cool. But here we are. It's best ball season. I start tomorrow, and I'm super stoked because I feel like this is just the easiest way for us to get more people involved in fantasy football. Because if you don't really want the commitment or you've never played, I think best ball is as good as a mock draft. It's $5. You get to be in a room and see the player movement. And I think also because you're drafting such a deeper league, you focus on those later rounds that you'll never really have to focus on in a season-long league, but you are going to be getting deeper. I think that's just the best mock draft theory.
I like it. You as a big-time best ball player, LA, do you find it more difficult to do the best ball drafts like in June and, so to speak, early Because once you draft that team, there's no waiver wire. Like, that's your club. And you may do a draft in June, and you may have, somebody blow a tire, week 2 of training camp, and then that's just a hole in your lineup. Like, have you found that to be a hiccup or a hassle for you as you do all these best balls?
I have to accept it as it is, because upcome August, I can't do any best balls because I'm either pulling people's draft order on Cameo or I'm drafting my own teams. July, I really want to be like traveling. NBA is over. Like, I'm going to be out in the move. So like, to me, it's just like the beginning of it all. I've started to really dig in. We've got Paul back. Looks like Paul's now on Chrome. This looks like we're going to have a better connection.
I love you guys so much that I am using a spyware browser, Chrome, which I never use because it's all Google, like monitoring literally every single keystroke you make.
Okay, Paul. This is a whole.
This guy's a mad scientist, man.
This is a whole nother topic. You do realize that there's no getting away from everything that we have in our possession spying. Now, Ring Camera just had to settle today because their employees have now been caught watching people's Ring cameras. It was a really hefty settlement, but most people don't have them like in their bedroom or what have you. They always advise you not to do that. But are you one of those people that doesn't realize your phone is listening to you at all times and knows everything you're doing?
I want to believe it's not. And I just, Google's way worse than most. And by the way, I've got the Ring doorbell in my bedroom, pointed at my bed, so I can tap out, I can ring out and bring in whoever's next. So, we can, that way we can bring each other back in and out. It's a great system. Highly recommended.
And it's run by Big Brother. So you have that going on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sorry about it.
Oh my God. The conversations we have with Paul Charchian, this dude. All right, Charch, I want to ask you look at sort of the running back position here. And you can pick a guy, pick two guys, whatever it is. But how would you tailor, because you're going to do redrafts. I don't know. You may even do some dynasty. Maybe you're in some dynasty leagues.
Yeah,
but
obviously, yes.
So how would you tailor, say, the running back position and maybe draft differently for a guillotine league as opposed to a redraft?
Regardless of format, I'm sloughing running backs. First, I'm predicated to do that anyway, because running backs is the highest risk position there is. And I'm not putting my highest risk in my most valuable picks in the first 3 rounds. Those are the picks that are the most valuable. I'm not putting my highest risk in that area. But it's also a deep year. If you just want solid starting running backs, you're going to be able to get them in rounds 5, 6, 7.
No doubt about it.
I'll go to war with Miles Sanders, my leading running back for Carolina, or I'll go to war with Cam Akers or James Conner or Joe Mixon. These are starters you're going to be able to fill in the middle rounds, and they're going to do just fine. Meanwhile, I'm going to put those early round picks into positions that have a high likelihood of being successful. That's the quarterback position. We know what we've got, the wide receiver position and the tight end position. That's my predilection most years, and especially this year with the depth at running back.
Paul Charchian joining us. You can follow at Paul Charchian. So when you say this, is this mainly for your guillotine leagues, or is this your draft strategy and even your season-long PPR or standard format?
Well, it's ideal in PPR, right? Because you got more ways to score points. So I think PPR is the ideal format for sloughing running back, because now we can find running backs that are going to chip in receptions, Jahmyr Gibbs, whatever. Find your running backs that are going to chip in receptions. So I think in PPR, but is anybody not playing PPR at this point? I mean, the only people who aren't playing PPR are the people that are in their league from 1987, and damn it, we're not changing.
Right.
Those are that's the last guy. You know who is Rick? John the Commissioner Habermeyer is playing a standard non-PPR league.
John Habermeyer back in the day when I benched a stud for a non-stud because I like the matchup, right? And this is way back in the day. This is like mid 1990s, okay, when we're all huddled up in Charch's apartment watching one TV analyzing the NFL. We did the best we could, folks. But Habe Baby told me, never bench your studs.
Yeah.
Always play them. And his words literally go through my head. And that mistake I made literally goes through my head. And I've sort of, it's like play your brand name guys. Like play the brand name guy over the non-brand name guy. It typically went. It helped me win a championship 2 years ago. I had the choice between 2 QBs. I even forget who the other one was Baker Mayfield or this guy. They were not great choices for my second quarterback, but because I went with the name, it was Davis Mills. I went with Baker over Davis Mills. Baker outscored him by like 7 points. I won the championship by like 5 points. That decision right there, going all the way back to Haby Baby Charch. And I mean, obviously, we're using brand name loosely here with Baker Mayfield,
yes,
but this was the end of his Cleveland run. And obviously, Baker's a brand name when you compare it to Davis Mills. Any old way, please send a bunch of love to my boy, John Habermeyer, a real blast from the past. That's so good to hear his name, Charge.
Let me get in one quick John Habermeyer story for Lisa.
Please do.
Because I think you'll appreciate this. This is early 90s. It's early KFA and radio in Minneapolis. So it's one of the first sports talk radio stations to, come on the air.
Yep.
This is pre-internet. Sunday night, John, the Commissioner Habermeyer, would go on the air and just read the box scores on Sunday night so everybody could score their league without having to wait for the paper the next morning. And he would pull a 20 share reading the box scores of the games that happened on Sunday night. And I know you know enough about radio to appreciate what that means.
Yes.
It was medieval times. It was the medieval times of fantasy.
It really was faxing our updates around. Yes.
Absolutely unbelievable. Now, you did miss out on what's going on in the NHL and a bit of the NBA while you were on your glamping trip. It's called glamping when you're in a camper now. Because you're in a camper. You're not in a tent. Tent is camping. We're talking Denver Nuggets. We know game 1 is tomorrow night. It's going to be Heat Nuggets. The Nuggets have tore through this season. They swept the Lakers. Even though you've missed it, can you give us a play here? Because, of course, Rick and I love the fact that we're not seeing eye to eye on this. So I'm seeing everyone can make this like a level playing field. How many games and who you got coming out with the Larry O'Brien trophy?
Well, I think, I haven't looked to see where the money's going right now. I assume Denver is favored. What is it? Maybe Denver in 6 would be my guess as to.
Charge. It's minus 400 for Denver to win the series.
Wow.
Minus 400.
Wow.
And Denver minus 5 Denver in 5 is the chalky play here at plus 250.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Now, my Timberwolves, my beloved Timberwolves, as it turns out.
I thought Chrome fixed it, LA.
Listen, he talked down on that Chrome and it hurt him. And because it's spying on him, it gave him a little pause there. Okay.
Oh my God. Where were you in that thought? Continue on, man.
My scrappy Timberwolves missing 2 starters gave Denver a better series than anybody else did to this point. They actually played the Nuggets well, and as well as anybody else has.
Wow.
You don't agree?
I completely disagree.
You're probably right.
You're my boy, Charge. You're my boy. You know me. I'm divorced from the Timberwolves, man. I'm I'm out on the Wolves like the first regime, bro. Like out. So I don't know. Hey, I got a question for you. Going back to the PPR thing. I think full point PPR is the way to go. People like to go half point PPR, or I don't like half point PPR. It's 1-to-1. You catch it, it's 1 point. Like, are you 1 point PPR or half point PPR?
Well, full point, because we want to see guys we want to see the even playing field between receivers and tight ends who need the help, right? Receivers and tight ends need the help. So you want positional equity. You want to be able to trade a top-tier wide receiver for a top-tier running back and a top-tier tight end for a top-tier running back, or a tier 2 for a tier 2. So that's why I love PPR. And by the way, if you're not playing super flex or 2 quarterback, you're playing wrong.
I agree.
Just otherwise the quarterback position is just so devalued. There's just outside of maybe a couple of guys, Hurts, Mahomes, Allen, that's about it. It just devalues the position so much. You got to play super flex.
So, Paul, I'll ask you then, in your super flex leagues, what are you getting rid of? Is it the kicker or is it the defense? It's always a debate.
I mean, can't we get rid of both? Why do I have to play with either one of those? Do I have to have a kicker and a
You're
defense?
such a hater. You're such a hater. I like playing kicker defense. I have people out there listening. Get into the chat. Where you at? I don't know. I'm old school that way, Charch. I like going with a kicker and a defense, man.
I like one or the other. You don't have to have both. I like to mix it up. So if I'm doing a super flex, I'll usually, one of my leagues will have no kicker, one will have no defense. But I don't know. I really like the wild ride that the defense is, because the fact that you could gain and lose points, the fact that you could win a game that you thought you lost over something that you could never really quantify. You can't calculate what you're expecting the defense to do or get. But I think it just adds a little bit of an edge with looking at your matchup.
If I'm playing in a kicker league, I want my Dicker kicker. I want Cameron Dicker, who led the league in field goal percentage last year at 95%. And if I'm going to have to play a kicker, I want Dicker.
We would have had so much fun with his name back in the day, Charge, when you could actually use sarcasm and be sardonic and tell jokes through prose. And we kind of like were the pioneers of that at fanball.com, I would say. But boy, we would have had fun with Dicker the kicker. We would have had fun with that.
Rick was great at coming up with nicknames for players. Maybe the best of all time. You remember Bam Morris? Lisa?
Yeah.
Bam. Yeah. Rick, you remember the nickname you gave him?
Bong Morris.
Bong Morris.
Because he had a weed bust. So we just called him Bong Morris.
That was it. The rest of the time he was Bong
Isaac
Morris.
Bruce, remember? Because Isaac Bruce is hurt all the time. Isaac Bruce. We went with hey, where do you want to see Nuke Hopkins play, Charge?
If I could pick a destination, it probably would be Green Bay, because it makes so much sense for him. It would help Jordan Love so much. It's such a young room. Now, they don't have a lot of cap money, so I don't think it's likely to work out. But if I could just pick a perfect spot, it would be Green Bay. You've got a rookie and a second-year wide receiver as your probable starting number 1 and number 2 receiver.
Not a big Romeo Dobbs guy, are you, Charge?
I'm really not. Man, I wanted that to work.
He wanted that to go, but it just didn't stick. That's an interesting one.
Question.
I haven't heard Green Bay. Okay, Kansas City is the common conversation would be what a great one-year fit he would be. Yeah. Kansas City potentially get a ring. But I also think, not to be discounted, would be the Cleveland Browns and him getting to match back up with Deshaun Watson.
Ooh, that's I haven't heard that angle. I like it.
Deshaun put a message out on the social media, which is where we actually learn what is really going on in the world now. And you have to watch everyone's stories, or maybe you got to be on Snapchat. There's many devices. It's not just going to fly across Twitter, because the kids today just really aren't on Twitter that much, right? So it's now IG. But Deshaun did mention in a story that he is doing whatever he can to talk to the people that make these types of decisions. And at the same time, Hopkins did a story last weekend and put his location on that he was actually in Houston, which threw everybody an even bigger curveball.
Yeah. Well, that could just be going home to his friends, right? Family in Houston. That's the assumption anyway. I don't think Houston's a landing spot for him, but although I'll say this. If you had to pick one team that's going to increase their win total the most this year, I would take Houston. I would take Houston in the AFC to increase its win total the most this year.
Well, didn't they only win 2 games last year?
I think
13-1 was Houston last year.
Okay, 3 games. I really will take the over on that with high expectations with a new coach, but I'm still not really trusting the quarterback. But yeah, that's interesting. And landing spot for Zeke, we were talking about this with Fensty when he was on with us before you came on, Paul.
Yeah.
Does Zeke wait till the opportunity does not present itself before the season, or is it once an injury happens during the season, the opportunity presents itself somewhere for Zeke?
I think it's going to be a training camp situation. Some running back's going to blow out an ACL on some innocuous play in training camp, and Zeke's going to find himself there. But interestingly, here.
It's always when he gives ready to give us something good.
Cuts. Dalvin Cook's at least a coin flip's chance of being a free agent at this time tomorrow, or maybe 12 hours from now.
Yeah.
And so we might have Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott, 2 guys who were taken in the first 2 rounds of fantasy drafts last year as free agents, not even on a team in June. That's, it tells you about the volatility.
Okay, so I think we are frozen again. We keep losing you, Paul. So what we're gonna do is that's all right. That's all right. We'll touch on a quick break. Paul, tell everyone where they can find out everything they need to know about guillotineleagues.com. And now that it's been 2 days since you started, how people can form a league there or get involved with participating.
Guillotineleagues.com. I mean, it could be any easier than that, right? See, this is the advantage of coming up with the name of your own style of play, right? So if you come up with it yourself, you can go house the URL before anybody else does. So guillotineleagues.com. We've got private leagues for you and your friends. We'll run the league for you. If you want to join a public contest at varying degrees of prize level, you can do that as well. And leagues are going now. Drafting's happening right now. We got 3-4 leagues drafting right this minute. I'm monitoring their drafts as they're happening. So yeah.
All right. Well, go ahead.
So LA Charch is the fantasy version of Big Brother, right? Overseeing the drafts and that was a terrible pick. What in the hell are you thinking over here? Wow, that was a full circle. We came with that.
Yeah, that was full circle. We get back. Let's touch on what's going on in MLB tonight. We'll continue to talk about the NBA Finals, a little bit more NFL talk, and more when we get back. That's okay. Bad internet. We can't do anything with bad internet. It does happen. And you're listening to Lisa Ann and Rick Kamla right here on Bettor Sports Live on the Bettor Sports Network.
The Detroit Lions select Sam Laporta, tight end, Iowa.
Had to go with your boy Sam Laporta there to pair with TJ Hawkinson.
Sammy, I couldn't double down on rookie tight ends. I think that's taking a little too far.
This could be one of the most exciting rookie tight end classes in a while, just based on the archetypes of these guys, of the Dalton Kincaids and the Sam Laportas. Obviously, Green Bay drafted two themselves. With Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. So after Kincaid, I would say is probably the consensus with tight ends. Like, who do you like as far as the best ball, like end of best ball? Do you like Laporta, or is there anybody else you like more?
I do like Laporta. We're looking for guys that can be a top 2 target on their team. So any path, any argument you could make, right? So you can make the argument that Dalton Kincaid is going to be a top 2 target with after Stephon Diggs. You can make an argument that with Jameson Williams suspended, now Sam Laporta is just going to play straight up wide receiver. He looks like a wide receiver. Why can't he line up out wide at split end, right? It's like Marvin Jones and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I would also throw another name in the ring, and I don't mind, since we're doing this for the fans, for the kids. He's still on the board. Luke Musgrave on your Packers. They're not super loaded at wide receiver. We like the guy Reed they drafted, but you never know. So why can't Luke Musgrave be a big slot? In fact, they drafted 2 tight ends, Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. Tucker Kraft is more of an inline guy. They might just go 2 tight ends right away. Tucker Kraft inline, Luke Musgrave in the slot. Why can't he be a target monster for Jordan Love? So those are the guys, those are the conditions that you need for a rookie tight end to succeed. They need to not only be the best pass catching tight end on the team, but a top 2 pass catcher on the team outright. That's how you get Kyle Pitts. Evan Ingram as a rookie was top 5 because Odell Beckham Jr. hurt his knee 4 weeks into the year. So that's the formula. We're looking for guys that can actually be a top target right away. Otherwise, we're playing the sit and wait long-term game, which is what you're doing with guys like Michael Mayer.
And we are back right here, Lisa Ann and Rick Kamla, Bettor Sports Live. I appreciate all of you in this chat. Byron asked, do the Browns have the cap space? That was a discussion I was listening to today. And if Hopkins was willing to make it work, they could do that financial gymnastics that they do with the money. That's all, just gymnastics.
You're going to need it. I mean, we're deep in the process. A lot of people have already spent their money. And to me, it's an interesting decision for Nuke Hopkins, because I'm going for, and I believe you brought this up earlier, LA, I am going with the championship pursuit. Okay. Get on big stages and big playoff games, come through, maybe win a ring. And maybe Kansas City wants to keep you then. I want him to go to the Chiefs, right? on a nice deal. Or maybe you go Juju Smith-Schuster on it and go to Kansas City for the cleanse year, the rehab year, win yourself a ring, and then move on for a longer term, more lucrative deal somewhere else. He's made a ton of money, man. And I'm not trying to say that he shouldn't maximize what he could make. I think just the best long play here is to go to a team that he can win a championship with, be a free agent next season, and get a whole bunch of money thrown at him.
I think it's a smart deal, but at the same time, you do have to think about his age and the likelihood of chasing that and not the money, and then having the struggle of there being a riches of receivers next year. They're also out there hustling for jobs, just like running backs are this year. Possible, right?
It's definitely possible. I'm trying to look up cap space here, LA, and I'm seeing a lot of teams with a lot of cap space, and I'm on Spotrac, but I'm wondering if this is legit. Like, do the Packers really have $43 million in cap space right now? That's what it says on Spotrac. So it's a little bit confusing with that. Now, I don't know what the free agent class is at the wide receiver position in 2024. We haven't even played a game yet, obviously. But I still hold Nuke Hopkins in high regard. We had Justin Fensterman on. He does as well. And even going into next year, LA, I believe Nuke is 31 years old right now. He's not a speed guy. He never has been a speed guy. So I don't think, like Julio Jones, right? Once his speed left him, his superpowers left him.
That was his thing. You're right.
That was his thing, right?
Yep.
And because he always dropped a lot of passes and just a phenomenal Hall of Fame talent, right? First ballot guy, maybe, if Terrell Owens wasn't, maybe Julio isn't. But once that speed went, boop, see ya. Derrick Rose, once he stopped being able to fly through the air with the greatest of ease, he became a role player and not an MVP candidate anymore. I think Nuke is going to be able to be sustainably good here.
We've got a little bit of news. Shannon Sharpe and FS1 have agreed on a buyout, and he's leaving undisputed on FS1 right off after the NBA Finals. His last show will be in June. And I remember there was beef, and it was not too long ago. Do you remember what that was over?
It was
DeMar Hamlin. It says it right here. It was over DeMar Hamlin.
Oh, that's right. It was
wow.
DeMar Hamlin.
He's been holding onto that grudge since January. I mean, that means his lawyers and his agents have been working on this breakup. Breakups aren't easy. Breakups take time. Breakups when money involved, even more complex. So he's been harboring this, sitting in the same room with somebody he clearly doesn't want to. And it's been tension, and he's out.
Here's what I believe will happen here. Shannon is strong enough to have his own show, LA. He does not need to knock heads with Skip. Pardon me. I don't say that dude's name. The Toupee out west. He does not need to butt heads with this guy every day. It kind of reminds me of Stephen A. Smith, because he just got over Max Kellerman, right? Like over it. Like, oh my God, eye roll. Here's another stupid take from Max. And so they split up, and Max is over here doing all this, and Stephen A. is over here, and they have kind of a revolving door in there, sparring with him. But I think Shannon Sharpe needs his own platform, okay? His own monologue and hitting us with takes, kind of like the other Toupee out west. His last name rhymes with turd, but the other Toupee out there that throws the stupidest hot takes up against the wall, hoping they stick. Shannon Sharpe is really smart and really clever, and I think would kick ass with his own show.
So, of course, there's conversation going on right now about how much ESPN spent on McAfee. I don't know if you know, but ESPN, McAfee is now going to be on ESPN. So in this story, every story has a different number. Last week, everybody was estimating that ESPN gave him 10 million. Then it went to, this article says 17 million. And what they say is ESPN in particular pursues him, given what is surely a high price tag is not guaranteed, given the backlash they received internally for hiring Pat McAfee for a reported $17 million a year in the midst of company-wide layoffs. By the way, this number is not out. Every reporter is hitting up McAfee about it. He has never given the number out. The number is not out there. I would say it would be more than this, because what ESPN to me did by taking on Pat McAfee They bought their competition. They bought their biggest competition during the day. If you have someone that had Aaron Rodgers on and there were 490,000 live viewers in YouTube, those are the numbers that can quantify. That's YouTube. Okay. You bought your competition. And it's been a lot for us all. I'm really happy for McAfee and the guys. I'm really happy for his family. We all want our people to grow, but the fact that he can't drop F-bombs is a bummer.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about this because you are how would I put this? Like, I'm a Deadhead, right? I love the Grateful Dead, the whole head. I'm a hoop head, right? Like, are you a Mac head? Are you a Pat head? Like, what would be the thing there? But anyway, like, are you going to follow him to ESPN and deal with the sort of buttoned up version of Pat McAfee?
I'm glad you asked. So I took about a week to process this. And to my friends in my world, this news was the biggest crisis I had yet faced in 2023. And I was really, and I was listening to see all the backlash on social. People got ugly with him. I would never do that. I still support him. He just had a baby. I get it. I get all of it. But here's the thing for me, and I think a lot of other people that listen to sports radio, whether they're at work all day, whatever, people that are avid listeners, to me, that was my break from ESPN every day were those hours. So I'm ESPN in the morning, I'm listening to Greeny while he's on Get Up. 9:58 rolls around. I know it's turning on to, I know that you just mentioned his name. Stephen A is coming on. I switched right away over to Get Up where it's Greeny's show at 10 to the other ESPN channel. And then I do that till noon. Okay. Then I'm out. I get my little break. I think it's just been a lot to process. I still want to follow him for sure. I would not judge it and not give it a chance. But a lot of the inside jokes and a lot of the incredibly inappropriate things that they talk about are my favorite parts that made the interviews stick because, you get things get dry in sports radio. And also I'm a little bit worried about all the commercials as well. You know what I mean? Like I need a break. I've memorized every commercial that I hear for the first 5 hours of my day. I mean, on ESPN. So I need a break from that. Now I'm going to be getting these same commercials again. It's going to be tough. But I've processed it. I've dealt with it. I'm over it. And I'm moving forward.
Isn't that what I've seen interviews, clips put out? I've never watched the Pat McAfee show. I'm busy doing my show when he's doing his, right? So it's just a clutter thing. It's not like, oh my God, I like Pat McAfee. I think he's a heck of a personality. I'm happy for his success. I mean, he has, oh my God, he's taken a crumb and turned it into Ruth's Chris highest priced prime ribeye, right? Like, it's insane what he's done. But to me, it seems like a lot of the charm of McAfee and his show is what you're saying. The cuss words, the ball busting, the bad jokes, the going in on a player, like maybe like more than ESPN would be comfortable, right? Like the edgy stuff, right, LA?
He doesn't really go in on players, so he doesn't do that. He's never negative. Never, ever, ever negative, which that's probably going to be a new conundrum because he's going to have to, have that narrative.
Got to get your hot take on up there in Bristol, LA.
Right. And his hot takes are like, really funny. It's a different dynamic. I think it comes at a weird time because here's what ESPN did. They restructured their money by laying off a ton of people. And so everybody is wondering, why are you laying off all these people? And then 2 weeks later, you hear this news. So obviously they restructure. I just can't stand behind working for Disney. That's just me.
I don't disagree. They're not paying my bill. We like watching Disney flicks with Lilicoy. It's about as far as we go with that. And so I don't think you have to look too hard to figure out why they laid off all of these people, which is career-wise and just life-wise tragic for these people. Yeah. Hopefully they're able to land softly and all this, but a ton of wages lost, potentially, lives really thrown in a bad direction here, just so they could, as you very astutely business-wise said, buy their competition and have it all for themselves. It really all comes back ultimately to greed.
Yeah, and that's what they did. Very smart going out there, but it was rough. It was rough news for me at first. And it was obviously rough because the first night they announced it, I went back and read a bunch of the comments under the YouTube thread, and I could see everyone kind of had the same thing. Like they start out with like, man, I love you and I'm so happy for you. We want you and your family to be successful. But like, what about the toxic table? The shit they talk on the toxic table is never going to be acceptable. And so they're going to have to they're just great. And ESPN's a bit political. And ESPN, baits a lot, and ESPN stirs the pot a lot. It's not my favorite, but I will say this. I've never watched FS1. Have you?
No, I mean, I've watched baseball games on FS1.
Okay.
Right?
But any of their shows. So I think no matter where,
of course not. I'm allergic.
No matter where Shannon Sharpe goes from here, I think it's going to grow his brand because he's going to be either under his own spotlight or under a spotlight that's, more well-versed, right? You don't hear people talk about FS1 like you hear people talk about ESPN or even FanDuel Sports with Kay Adams, right? There's other people that are starting to really take off in that space, but wherever he goes, but to think that he has still been harboring this since the Hamlin incident meant that was too far for him.
Do you know do you have DirecTV, LA?
I do. No, I do not. Not here. No, we can't have it here.
So whatever your, Cablevision, whoever you have, do you know the channel number to FS1 off the top of your head?
I don't know any of my channel numbers. I just go in and type the search to the channel. I've never once, I've been here 3 years. I have not memorized anything. I don't know. And it drives people crazy because they see how I go.
Oh, wow.
Because you know what? I'm so geared towards apps that I'm used to just going into the app, going into the, the little keyboard pops up. You just scroll through. I just figured out that ESPN's 670 or something. And that's only because I was using the TV in my office and wanted to turn on the TV in my living room where it's 570. And I was like, oh, you got to remember this channel. So when you walk in there, it's easier. But I just don't use brainwaves for that stuff. I don't know why. But I know when I scroll through the 10, when you go in 10 channels at a time, that FS1 is probably about 15 channels after ESPN and before NFL Network and right before the golf channel. So that's how I know that creed of 30 channels because I just keep, going down. Yeah,
it's in that cluster. 219 is FS1. I am rarely on FS1. They have some college football games. All right. So I'll watch some college football games on FS1, maybe some baseball games, but that is about it, LA. Look, I'm working, you know what I mean? When the hot take shows are on, I'm working, I'm grinding my own rhymes for Give and Go on NBA radio. So, but I wouldn't watch them anyway, LA. I wouldn't. I would if I had some other optionality or whatever, I'd rather be outside sipping on a cold drink, enjoying the sunshine, right? You know what I'm saying?
I can't. I'll admit it. I can't watch Skip for a moment. I couldn't watch Coward either. Either of them I can't stomach. So Shannon Sharpe, kind of lost out on me being a viewer over his. I'll probably watch him where he goes next for sure.
You go.
I'll look at it. You mentioned baseball. We all need to know how you're doing in your 700 fantasy baseball leagues and what games that are going. Because I almost thought you were going to have Ricky's props for the MLB tonight. So when I did my little video, I said MLB, and then I went back and looked. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to reshoot it. Nobody will listen past the first 20 seconds anyway. How are you doing in your leagues? What's been your biggest conundrum so far?
Biggest conundrum so far? JJ McCarthy. I'll go with JJ McCarthy.
Okay.
Rock star at the end of last year. Homers and steals and good batting average. And everybody's high on the Diamondbacks coming into the year, right? They got Corbin Carroll, the likely NL Rookie of the Year. Now that James Outman's hit a major slump. And so JJ McCarthy was awful and got sent down to AAA, hit 400 at AAA, stealing bases, hitting home runs. He has, if I'm not mistaken, back-to-back games now with 2 steals, okay, and back in the majors with the D-backs. So he's been a real pump faker for me, but I've gotten back on him. LA, I'm first place in a dynasty league with a record of 115-47. I am in another dynasty league in 5th place, 76-60. Yahoo Public League, first place, 56-23. Another Yahoo Public League, 3rd place, 15 games over 500. Another dynasty league, I'm first, 51-23. Another dynasty league that started a little bit late, I'm sixth place, 11 games over 500. Another Yahoo Public League, I am third. I guess that's 17 games over 500. And then I'm in one other Dynasty League, LA. Second place, it's 78 and 42. So those are 8 leagues. I'm in 5 dynasties and 3 public redrafts. And obviously, we're having a good year, LA. We're having a good year.
Dude, your average is fantastic. Your lowest place right now is 6th place in one league, but you're staying in the top 2 in all your other leagues. Now, you grind hard. When is MLB All-Star break? It's July, right?
It is July, yeah.
Okay, so that's a little bit where you'll cruise back, and you want to stay with these numbers because people start to lose interest in June. So that one league that you're in 6th place, was there a player that you are glad that you overdrafted this year in fantasy baseball?
Oh man, is that a good question? I tend to be Kodai Senga. I've got a ton of shares of him.
You felt good about him before the season. I remember you talking about Senga.
Yeah, Justin Steele, the hot shot for Chicago, who pitched tonight. And oh my God, no. Oh my God.
By the way,
I can't believe it. Justin Steele, MRI on his forearm tomorrow. Oh, wow. Is that a buzzkill? We were talking about lightning bolts down. Look, it's starting pitchers, right? They're a dime a dozen. I'll go to waivers and pick up Brayan Bello. I'll go to waivers and pick up Logan Allen. I'll make it work here, but that's a buzzkill, man. My boy, Justin Steele, just blew a tire. That's terrible news.
And how many leagues do you have Justin Steele in?
Off the top of my head, probably 8 of my 10 Yahoo leagues. I have them all over the place. Heavily invested in Justin Steele. In LA, his numbers he's having an all-star year. We're talking about, this stupid league doesn't do wins. Let me get into a league where they do wins. A league that doesn't do wins is so dumb to me. I just don't get it. All right, I can't find it. But his ERA is great. His whip is great. K per 9. He's got, 5, 6, 7 wins, right? He's been phenomenal so far. What a buzzkill that Justin Steele just blew up on us.
I'm really sorry that I brought that up.
The people need to know. The people need to know about Justin Steele.
You might not have known until the show was over, or maybe you would have looked tomorrow. But earlier, before the season started, you and Bettor Boss were super high on the Atlanta Braves, and they are holding it down. First spot in the National League, 33-23. Their next closest are my New York Mets at 28-27 losses. So how you feeling right now about that prediction earlier in the season? Again, Bettor Boss, want to give him credit. He was all in on the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, I'm feeling good about it. They haven't run away and hid. Okay, I think the Mets looked at the standings. They're 4 back, something like that. Philly is only like 7.5 back, lurking within striking distance here. Frankly, I thought Atlanta would be better than this. They're like 11 games over 500, something like that. Their pitching ranks have been hit by injury again and again and again. They've lost Fried, they've lost others. So, but look, they're the Braves. They go to AAA, they bring dudes up. Their bats are obviously kicking ass. I was on Ronald Acuna for National League MVP before the season. I really can't believe a lot of the resistance that I got on that. It seemed rather chalky to me. It wasn't chalky in the betting books. I think he was a plus 800 at the start of the year. Now he's a plus 100. But Acuna's having a fabulous year, and I'm happy for everybody that plugged into him, man, because I got a bunch of shares of Acuna. LA, he fell to the end of the first round, fell to the second round, the top of the second round in some leagues. So there were leagues where I was able to get, I'm just throwing Machado and like Acuna on the turn there, first round into second round. And maybe it was Acuna Machado, but something like that. I didn't understand Acuna being drafted outside of the top 5 at all by anybody. I didn't get that.
It's nice when you're on a player and your league mates aren't, because it gives you a better opportunity to not only get the player, but maybe get a player or two before you make that pick. Matt, very happy. Here comes his Mariners, who are right now sitting at 28-27, exact as my New York Mets. So obviously the Marlins are going to be better than the Mets when it ends.
They're right there. The Marlins, speaking of Matt Deutsch, who's getting a lot of love right now, he was high on the Marlins. And I was like, I see a lot of the young talent, but I don't see it coming together and germinating this year. And they're doing it without Jazz Chisholm. They're awesome. 2020 type of guy with the home runs and the steals. He's been on the IL for a minute here. They're going to get him back, I don't know, in the next week or so. Miami's been a fun story. They really have. It's been, pitching's obviously been big for them. They're getting some timely hitting. Some guys are overperforming. Jorge Soler is having a year, right? Jorge Soler, LA, goes from the deepest caverns of the waiver wire to like 35 or 40 home runs, right? You got to get him in the right year. And I do have a lot of shares of Soler. Seeing him bop home runs, you know me, LA, I'm all about home runs and steals. It's just like threes, blocks, and steals in basketball. You got to have the rare categories. You got to have the fantasy gold. And I find in head-to-heads that it comes down to home runs and steals a lot. So I'm obsessed with those two categories.
I don't know if you know this because you've been in the depths of the NBA, but Bill Belichick did take blame for the Patriots' OTA violation. Already something shady going down in Foxborough, and I'll tell you what it was. The violation was a result of coaches scheduling that resulted in players spending more than their allowed time at the team facility. According to sources, specifically, it was a result of special teams workshop led by Judge. The whole situation is in the past and we've moved on, but it did cost them $50,000.
This is such a stupid rule by the NFL. Why are we limiting the amount of time that players can be at the facility and practice? The NBA doesn't do that. I don't believe Major League Baseball does that. Why does the NFL do this? It just doesn't make any sense to me, LA.
It doesn't, because I would imagine most of these players don't want to go to a regular gym and don't, have all the things they need at the facility at their convenience, right? So it just makes sense that you'd be able to do that. But that's why I imagine a lot of these players do have some sort of a vested interest in a gym. That's probably why Brady had TB12 going and that facility in Foxborough.
So and some people would say, well, if you don't police it at all and don't restrict it, then you could have the New England Patriots and they might have 50 hours accumulated of together work on the upcoming season more than this team or this team or this team. And what I would say is, if you're that team or that team or that team, work more, do more, right? Have more practices, have more film sessions, have more playbook sessions. Like the more, the better. Are you trying to win a championship here or not? I just think it's a dumbass rule. And it really marries LA with the fact that Bill Belichick is the cheatingest son of a gun ever. Okay. He has built an empire/dynasty on cheating. He has. People bang on the Astros and guys Bregman can't go to home play without cheater. You suck. You cheated on tests in high school and blah, blah. You cheated on your driver's test, blah, 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 blah. Why does nobody bang on the Patriots for literally creating a dynasty on the foundation of cheating? It boggles my mind why they get off the hook and the Astros won one championship based on cheating. And they are the cheaters of all time, when in fact the Patriots should be labeled the cheaters of all time.
Yeah, I think Belichick probably and the Patriots have the theory of that theory of don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. You've heard this before.
That is such a good point by you. That's exactly what they're doing. We're
Because
just
there
going to
could be
push the
other-
lines and push the lines. And when we cross it, they're going to ding us, but we're going to push it until they find us.
And now they're also, guilty by association of all of the other weird things they've done, whether it be Deflategate, whether it be, weren't they recording Jets practice a couple of years ago, or the Bengals practice?
Bengals, yes. And I will take this to my grave, LA. I will take this to my grave. I lost every single bet that I played on the Rams-Patriots Super Bowl. I was in Las Vegas, okay? Every single bet. I had the Rams laying the points. I had, and maybe that was a dumb bet, but okay, fine. Every prop bet that I played, the over on Torrey Holt, the over on Marshall Faulk, all this kind of stuff, right? These guys were un-effing stoppable that year. All of a sudden, they got stopped by New England. Why? Because New England knew what they were going to do. I believe that New England had Spygate on the greatest show on turf, and that's why the Patriots minimized the Rams in that football game. I will take that to my grave. I think they cheated their way to that championship because that was such a departure from what we had seen from the greatest show on turf. I think there had to be cheating involved.
That's a great possibility. And we know this is not new in their wheelhouse. That makes perfect sense. What New England did to the Steelers is unforgivable, Byron Nelson says in the chat.
Look, it get your hate on, brother. Byron, get your hate on, man. I mean, I don't like the Patriots. I love when the Patriots lose. Okay? I do. I'm not a Belichick guy. I mean, to give him his respect, I do. He's Bill Belichick. He's arguably the GOAT of NFL coaches. And probably is the GOAT of NFL coaches, but I don't like him. I don't root for him. I love it when he loses a tough game and has the soured hour press conference. I'm here for it, man. And they're going to suck this year, by the way, LA. This is going to be a thud year for the New England Patriots. Are you high at all on the New England Patriots this year, LA?
No, I'm not. I'd love to see if we can get a better view of Mac Jones, but we haven't seen enough. And the reason I say we haven't seen enough is he hasn't had the depth of weapons, but yet I still look at it like Hunter Henry. Why? You're a great tight end. Why? You are there. You just seem invisible. Like, it's tough for me to buy in, but man, what will they do with Mac Jones after this season? There's so much quarterback conversation going on. Will Jerry Jones renew Dak Prescott after this season if it doesn't go well? But changing coordinators in New England was a thing. It's been a part of the conversation. I just don't see it either unless their defense is really that good.
And their defense has holes in it. It's not the same defense that it has been. Look, it's a Belichick defense. It's still going to be solid. It's going to be a good fantasy defense. They're going to turn people over and get sacks, but it's not shut down. Their offense is far from championship ready. It's far from even playoff level right now, LA. Juju Smith-Schuster, I like him. He's solid. I mean, he's your top receiver. It's not good enough. You bring in Gesicki. I did like that move. I did. Okay. Now you have him. Now you have Henry. Maybe you go back to a double tight end look. Mac Jones, he's just not that guy, man. He's not. I think he's going to be in the league a long time, toggling between starter and bench player, kind of that purgatory that a lot of guys find themselves in. But I don't see him popping and really gaining a lot of traction. I don't see Kenny Pickett popping and gaining a lot of traction in Pittsburgh either. I'm just not a huge fan. I think Pittsburgh overdrafted him. Now they're married to him. They're going to run him out there for at least this year. But LA, going back to New England, like, this is it for Mac Jones up there. Like, he either swims or he's going to sink, and they're going to move on. And you're going to get Bailey Zappi up in there very quickly.
Yeah, I see that. I feel the same way. Bailey Zappi brought the excitement last season, though he is a small player. We didn't get to see a lot. But when you're looking, you said Juju, but then you got Kendrick Bourne. You got Devontae Parker. Is it possible that Devontae Parker can repeat his 2018 season? No, it's not.
No, ma'am.
It's not happening.
No, ma'am.
So, but, and Gesicki is listed after Hunter Henry, but really I think Gesicki has more value. But it's been a bummer because I loved Hunter Henry and I went all in on him last season because I was like, who else is Mac Jones going to have to throw the ball to?
Right, right. It's good
Mac
thinking.
Jones does not utilize the tight end. So that's what concerns me for Gesicki.
And the thing is, Mac Jones did utilize the tight ends in 2021, and then last year he completely didn't. Maybe there's some culpability here with Hunter Henry. Okay, wasn't getting open, wasn't moving as well, and all of that. But Mac Jones and Hunter Henry had a really good red zone chemistry together in 2021. 9 touchdowns that Hunter Henry had that year, and then fell off the table. And I think that's why they went out to get Gesicki, maybe turn up the heat on Hunter Henry. But look, LA, I'd like to hear your opinion on this. Mike Gesicki is a more talented football player than Hunter Henry. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with that completely. Now, being that I want to really diversify in these 30 best ball drafts that I'm doing, I've been breaking down team by team for myself of like kind of a hit list, kind of like rankings, or really team by team, because bye weeks are a thing that if you do not pay attention in best ball, you could truly burn yourself. If you draft 2 quarterbacks for the same bye week, you're not going to have a quarterback for a week. Like all these little kind of, and so I was looking at the Patriots today and I'm like, could I, as a third quarterback, see myself taking Mac Jones? So I had to ask myself, are you going to take Juju? I think it would be Juju and Gesicki would be the potentials. Maybe I go for some Ramondre Stevenson, but I just don't think I could do Mac Jones, but I'm going to have to because I'm going to want to diversify. But he will be on a team where I have 3 quarterbacks, and that's the only way I feel comfortable drafting him.
Now, in best ball, is it always 2 quarterbacks, or does it vary with that? It probably varies, right?
These are straight PPR. It's not super flex 2 quarterbacks, but you take 2 quarterbacks because otherwise on your quarterback's bye week, you're not going to have a quarterback.
Right. And you take a third just in case of an injury or something like that and give yourself a little bit more insulation on that. Is that the thinking there?
I do, because you draft so deep, right? You get into the depth of like players that might even not even make the roster, especially going this early June for best ball drafts. So yeah, I don't feel good about Mac Jones. I don't know where this kid will go next, but this isn't going to be an exciting season for New England Patriot fans, if you ask me.
No, there's been, look, at some point, when you erode your roster through horrible drafting, this is what you get. And I like Ramondre Stevenson. I think he's going to have a really good year. But Devontae Parker, please. Kendrick Bourne, please. It's not even close to good enough. Oh, by the way, they could have Deebo Samuel or DK Metcalf or AJ Brown right now. They screwed that up. They could have Nick Chubb rolling for them right now, but they took Sony Michel instead. This is what happens. And you're left here with skill players that aren't that great. And so I think it's going to be LA. I would take the under on New England. I think their win total's 8.5. Nah, this is 6-11, 7-10 written all over it.
I agree with you on that. We are going to get to a quick break. We're going to continue the conversation. We'll talk a little bit more NBA championship. We're going to continue some MLB, NFL, and then maybe check in on what's going on in the MLB as well. You're listening to Rick Kamla and Lisa Ann right here on Bettor Sports Live on the Bettor Sports Network.
Anybody who's watching this, getting ready for the rookie draft, so let's do an all-out blitz on this. Should you be drafting for need? Or should you be drafting for talent? And I'll give you an example. Oftentimes, I have pretty good receivers. My receiver core is usually really good for my dynasty teams. My running back core, usually not so bueno. I don't know if I just focus on receivers and tight ends too much, but my running backs, I usually need players here. If I am sitting at like the 103, the 104, the 105, should I be, reaching on a guy like Zach Charbonnet? Or should I be looking at drafting guys like Jackson Smith and Jigba or Dalton Kincaid or Jordan Addison, stuff like that? How do you handle weighing drafting for need versus talent for rookie drafts, Pat?
Generally, I think it makes sense to go with the talent and, like talent over need. And I do think, best ball drafts are a little differently because you can't make moves in season. But in managed leagues, whether it's redraft or dynasty, I think positional balance is like the most overrated thing in fantasy. You can make trades, go with the talent, go with the value on the draft board, and worry about positional balance later on.
However you're invested in sports, from betting to fantasy, collectibles, and more, join our community on Bettor Sports Network.
And we are back with you right here, Lisa Ann and Rick Kamla, Bettor Sports Live. We've got some commentary going on here. Byron says take Kenny Pickett. So let's talk about Kenny Pickett. You are out. Am I correct, Rick?
I'd rather have him than Mac Jones. You know what I'm saying? Because I think Kenny Pickett's got a stronger hold on that job. I don't think the numbers are going to be great, but literally Mac Jones already has the hook around his neck. All Belichick has to do is yank it. You know what I'm saying? Kenny Pickett's got a much longer leash with Mike Tomlin.
So you got Kenny Pickett. We're talking about the Steelers right now. The number one receiver we all saw last season that didn't do what we thought was Deontay Johnson. Who else do you think can really emerge for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year?
Well, honestly, it's hard to see. It's hard to see George Pickens kicking ass. It's hard to see Allen Robinson kicking ass. It's hard to see Pat Freiermuth kicking ass because they're all good and they're all in each other's way. And you have a quarterback that I don't trust to get him the rock. So, I'll mess with those guys when the time is right for me, but Deontay Johnson's probably going to be drafted higher than I'm willing to go based on his quarterback. I love me some Najee Harris. I do think he's going to have a bounce back year. I think the Steelers line is going to be better. And if he's healthy, I think he was hurt all last year. I think that was the issue. So I'm still high on Najee Harris, but I'm not high on Pittsburgh's passing game.
And that's what we have to define right now as we get ready for fantasy football season, where you get to make those moves where there's going to be value, because even though it's a shared backfield, I think if Najee's healthy, he'll get the most of it. Speaking of healthy, Aaron Rodgers still dealing with this calf injury.
Pesky.
It's
pesky
pesky.
calf. It's so pesky. Kind of like the New York Post. The New York Post is pesky. Look, I don't think this is going to be an issue when we get to training camp, but it's an issue now. I read before we came on here that he's doing better, but he's going to be limited in practice. I think Saleh said he may be full go next week. It is what it is. It's a little bit of a bummer, right? Because you're installing stuff and he's getting vibed out with new players. And so him not being on the field isn't ideal. But, if we find out that Rodgers is carrying this calf injury into training camp, that's a problem, LA. And so they got to get him right. They've got like almost 2 months to get him right before the start of training camp. So I think he'll be fine. But if I hear any kind of reporting about that calf, and so I know a lot of people are probably saying, why? Why would that be so concerning? Because last year, Aaron Rodgers was unable to move like he was in previous years. Didn't run as much, didn't scramble as much, didn't buy time as much. Planted in the pocket, taking a lot of sacks. And it's because he wasn't able to move all that well. Well, if you're dragging a calf into the season, you're probably not going to be able to move all that well. And once again, you will be a sitting duck and the house of cards may crumble. It literally, they need a super healthy Aaron Rodgers this year, LA, for this to work and come to fruition.
What's great is that he's still at OTAs. He's still out there every day. And this also could be good for Zach Wilson. Not that I think he's got a bright future in New York, playing for the Jets, but this could be valuable time for him, which we all know backup quarterbacks are important. Teams are allowed to have 3 on their starting lineup this year. That shows you how important a backup quarterback. But the player everybody's going to be going for that, of course, everybody's going to want for the Jets is Garrett Wilson. And I just feel like Garrett Wilson's going to go so high. Everyone's already pushing Allen Lazard to the side. I like Lazard. I'll have to take Lazard if I don't feel Wilson is at a spot where I'm comfortable drafting him.
LA, I love where your head is at. We're all high on Garrett Wilson. Some people are going to be too high on Garrett Wilson because they're too high on Aaron Rodgers and they're just maybe high. But I like your Lazard take. Rodgers vibes with Allen Lazard. There's a reason he's a Jet. Allen Lazard is arguably the best blocking wide receiver in the NFL. That's going to keep him on the field for all downs, okay? And obviously he's a great red zone target. He's got the connection with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think Allen Lazard is going to hit 1,000 yards, LA. I don't. But I do think he could hit 7, 8, 9 touchdowns, right? Catch 70 balls, 900 yards, 8 touchdowns. Just a really, really solid season. As a borderline wide receiver 2, definitely a good wide receiver 3. And look, I don't think he's going to be overpriced. I think Allen Lazard will be either right where he should be or maybe even a little bit depressed with everybody price-wise, with everybody thinking about Garrett Wilson. I like where your head's at with Lazard. I, too, am an Allen Lazard person.
Now, my drafts will very much differ because one of the leagues that I'm in here in the city that we draft in person, the Squad 18 Firehouse League, the Jets and Giants players are going to go in a range where I'm not even going to bother with it. And what was surprising was that last year I got Saquon because no one trusted him back from the injury. And I'm like, I am in a draft room with nothing but Giants and Jets fans and Saquon sitting here. I'm taking him. But I think you're looking at this depth, Mecole Hardman. So I think Lazard could go as late as 7th round, 8th round, unless you're dealing with people who are like, so this is going to be the greatest year ever for the Jets. Because to me, it's still the Jets. Their defense is great. There's not going to be a need for all of these receivers to be putting up tons. It's not like Kansas City. We love the offense in Kansas City because their defense sucks. And Patrick Mahomes can put up 5 touchdowns. Are we legit expecting Aaron Rodgers to put up 5 touchdowns? No. And also, he's not going to be asked to because the defense is still so good.
That's why I'm high on the Jets. It's their defense. And all they need is this QB to bring it to a boil. And I think Rodgers is going to do that. I think they're going to win 10, 11 games. And I've got them the 5th best team in the AFC right now. You know that I'm also high on the Cleveland Browns. I'll be even higher on them if they get DeAndre Hopkins. But back to the Jets. Okay. It reminds me of Stafford going to the Rams. It reminds me of Brady going to the Buccaneers. You had an awesome defense and a capable offense that just needed that captain, that shepherd. And Rodgers is going to be that guy. He's going to stabilize things. Okay. And no more dysfunction at the quarterback position in New York. No more wondering. No more face planting. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers in there, and he's got weapons. LA and their offensive line, I think, is in pretty good shape. It's all there. It's all there. All they got to do is stay healthy and execute, and I think they will.
And you brought up the Cleveland Browns, so let's talk about it. You're high on the Browns this year. I am as well. I think Deshaun Watson has a bounce back year. He did not fight to get back in the league this hard and go through everything he went through we had to expect there was going to be rust last season. He is there. But what does concern me is, do we rely on Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, and Donovan Peoples-Jones as being I can't look at Marquise Goodwin. You know what I mean? I can't look, because these are players that are going to be there. These are best ball drafts. You're going deep, right? If you look at a quarterback that you love, will you go with his fourth or fifth option in those late rounds just in case?
Sure. No doubt about it. I'm not a Donovan Peoples-Jones guy. I think he's okay. I think he's a bench wide receiver in the NFL, but their wide receiver room, he's got to play. And he doesn't suck. He's okay. I'm okay with him. But that's why the DeAndre Hopkins thing is so sexy. I mean, you think about Hopkins, Cooper. I like Elijah Moore. 4-3 guy coming out of Ole Miss, got busy at Ole Miss, obviously fell out of favor. He wanted to trade. The whole thing just got icky with the Jets. They trade him. Great trade by the Cleveland Browns. He'll be their slot receiver. Deshaun Watson loves throwing to slot receivers. And you've got David Njoku, who should have a really solid year. 60 grabs, 700 yards, 6-7 touchdowns. Like, he should have but he's always hurt, right? Like, if he stays healthy, he should have that statistical season I just said. And I have saved the best for last. I'll just reiterate this one more time, LA. Nick Chubb is going to lead the league in rushing, and I'm not sure it's going to be close. I think he's going to have a phenomenal career year. This may be like a 2,000-yard season for Nick Chubb. I'm telling you right now. Gone is Kareem Hunt. You got Jerome Ford behind him, and I like Ford, but come on, man. That Ford is not going to siphon a lot of touches off Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb's going to get the rock until his tongue is hanging out, scoring 1 million touch. He might have a 20-touchdown season. I could not be higher on Nick Chubb. I think he's going to go massive this year.
So when you talk about Nick Chubb, does that mean you have him in your number one spot in your rankings for running backs?
There's not a running back I would rather have. I would rather have him than CMC. I would rather have him than Eckler. I would rather
How
have
about
him
Bijan?
Yeah, I would rather have him than Bijan. Bijan's very, very high because, look, he's young. I'm not worried about him getting hurt. I have a hang up with Jonathan Taylor, LA, after experiencing that last year. Look, I love him. I'm heavily invested in him in dynasty leagues, and I don't regret that. But he struck me last year as a guy who refused to play the game of football at less than 100%. You know how I feel about that. It is on you to play. When you're a big money guy, when you're a star like that, you got to push through it. And I don't think he pushed through injury enough for my liking last year. That is in my brain as we move into drafts this year. I would rather go with a Nick Chubb. I would rather go with a Bijan Robinson because I don't have that cloud hanging over it, right? Oh, by the way, Jonathan Taylor has Anthony Richardson at quarterback, okay? We could have some blowout games where the running game is completely out of the game script by the third quarter, right? So there's some issues I got with Jonathan Taylor this year.
You're in a redraft league. Jonathan Taylor is sitting there in the 4th round. Do you take him?
For sure. For sure.
Because you're planning on going wide receiver heavy at the beginning of your draft this year. So that's why I asked. You're probably going to start really looking for your running backs round 3, round 4, or maybe 4 or 5. Okay.
Correct. And I mean, so Taylor's
so
going to go
you're not
going to
get Bijan. You're not going to get Nick Chubb.
I won't get any of those guys. I
You
won't
won't
get any
make
of those
any
guys.
exceptions in any of your leagues and maybe take one
I tell you what.
do early.
It's such a good question, LA. If Nick Chubb, for some reason, I don't know, people out there in the chat room, Better Boss and Scrimp Daddy, are you guys feeling Nick Chubb like I'm feeling Nick Chubb? I don't know. Well, I'd like to hear
Better
what you guys
Boss says
what
over
you guys all think.
1,200 carries for Chubb. Tread is wearing down. Better Boss likes those embryos. So he says, get yourself Jerome Ford.
So I disagree. I think Nick Chubb is going to have his career year this year. They have arguably the best offensive line in football. You're going to have balance on the offense now with Deshaun Watson and an improved passing game. Your defense is going to be adequate. It's going to keep you in games and probably give up around 24 points a game. They're going to be a middle of the road defense. I'm definitely big on Nick Chubb. I get where Better Boss is at. He's in fade Nick Chubb mode. I think Nick Chubb I think Nick Chubb's a Hall of Famer. Okay. And not a 3-year window Hall of Famer, but an extended run Hall of Famer, like a Curtis Martin, like a Jerome Bettis. I think he's that cut of running back. So I think he's going to keep the train on the tracks here for several more years.
All right, I'm going to throw you a curveball right here since we're running rampant with the NFL conversation. I'm in it to win it because I start drafting tomorrow. I know last year you had this, really strong feeling that the Denver Nuggets were going to go. The Denver Broncos were going to go really far. Now, that didn't happen. We blame it all on Russell Wilson, who is already looking leaner as we've seen him courtside all the Nuggets games. We now got Sean Payton in there, okay, making things change. Do you have a better outlook for the win total and for Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos this season? Because my concern is I don't really trust Russell Wilson because I haven't seen enough yet. And it makes me want to lean back from my shares of Jerry Jeudy, my shares of Courtland Sutton. But I'm going to have to be drafting these players doing 30 drafts in 30 days.
Well, I like Courtland Sutton. I think he could have a really good year with Russell Wilson. Because shoot, he can have 80 grabs, 1,100 yards, and 9 touchdowns in a bad year for Russell Wilson. That can still happen. But in terms of Denver, LA, Sean Payton saves the whole thing. If they didn't have Sean Payton, it would be a complete 1,000% fade. You have Sean Payton, so you have a chance. But they have question marks all over the place. What will be left of Tim Patrick coming off of the ACL tear? Your starting tight end is Greg Dulcich, okay? You have to do better than that. Javonte Williams, who knows when he's going to be right? They're talking about giving Samaje Perine a bunch of carries and a bunch of touches.
We've heard that story for too many seasons already.
Come on.
You know how it ends.
Their defense is going to be pretty damn good in Denver. But ultimately, LA, I wonder if Russell Wilson has gotten too bougie, has gotten too Hollywood, and if he's just in it for the money and the lifestyle and not winning anymore, okay? Because I'm sorry, you had a chance to win a championship last year, and you tricked off an entire NFL season after taking $250 million, and after the team that traded for you gave up $1 million assets to get you. That's a bad look. And so it has completely vaporized my trust in Russell Wilson. LA, he can get it back if we see him in better shape, if he's running more, if he's better in the pocket, if he's more consistent, then I will say, yes, he just had a bad year and Russell Wilson is back. But LA, I got to see that to believe that.
I mean, Sean Payton changes a lot. There's absolutely no doubt there, but it's about the will. And I think Russell Wilson had to be humbled last year, hearing everybody talk about him, looking at the record, the disappointment all the way around. It has to be better than it was last season. And that's the only kind of thought I have really to wrap that up.
I think they'll be better. I agree with you. It really can't get much worse. Nathaniel Hack, it's the second worst hire in NFL history behind Urban Meyer, okay? So they got rid of that fiasco. You've got absolutely an NFL head coaching gangster in there right now with Sean Payton. But LA, I don't see him in the playoffs, right? I don't have him in the playoffs. I'd have the Chargers above them. I'd have the Ravens above them. I certainly would have the Browns and the Dolphins and the Jets above them. Look, I got Denver at 7-11, 8-9, somewhere around that range. I don't see a banner year for them.
Let's go to, you just mentioned a couple of teams. Let's go to the Las Vegas Raiders because we have a questionable tag. Jimmy G had surgery in March. What are the chances you think he's out there slinging the rock for the open of the season?
I'm sorry. I just saw, pardon me, LA. I had a brain fart right there. I was looking at Better Boss's comment here about Jim Zorn. I'm sorry. Which road were you taking me down there?
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right.
He just had his surgically repaired foot.
Yeah. So I don't know how this is going to go. What I can tell you is I did an interview with Vic Tafur the Raiders beat writer for a long, long time on Mad Dog Sports Radio. And he told me that the Raiders don't even want to win this year. What? They don't want, this is the NFL. This isn't the NBA. He said,
Wow.
wait, have they made aggressive moves? No. So they're essential. This is their beat writer saying this on a major platform. Okay. So that's more than speculation to me. That's the guy who's plugged in and knows what the hell is going on with the Raiders, saying that they are not in the winning business this year. And they have so far to go, LA, in terms of offensive line, in terms of all the holes on defense. You've got Jacobs, but you didn't bring him back long-term because we kind of know how this is going to go. You're hanging Devontae Adams out to dry for sure. If you were in it to win it, would you have traded Darren Waller to the New York Giants? The answer is no, right? Because now you're restarting at that tight end position. And Jimmy Garoppolo, look, he's cute, he's cuddly, and he wins when all of the surroundings are in a really good position, right, on his team. That is not the case here with the Vegas Raiders. And Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to win with this team. And I think Jarrett Stidham is going to get a lot of playing time for the Raiders this year.
Well, what's interesting is that the Raiders did. So Garoppolo's 3-year, $72.75 million contract with the Raiders contains a clause that would allow Las Vegas to release him without penalty if he's unable to pass a physical due to his surgically repaired foot. That's crazy.
It is. I don't know if they're going to do that.
Demise.
I don't know if they're going to do that or not. They might. But again, it goes back to, if you're not in the winning business, why not just get real tanky with Jarrett Stidham and try to bottom out for a Caleb Williams or a Drake May, right? Those guys are better and give your team a lot more upside than either Jimmy G or Jarrett Stidham. But the Raiders take the under on their win total. I don't have it in front of me, LA. I think it's 7.5, maybe 8.5. I definitely take the under on the Raiders. The Raiders actually could materialize as one of the absolute worst teams in the league this year.
You brought up Darren Waller going to New York, so let's talk about the Giants. Darren Waller is a huge part of the conversation. Can Daniel Jones utilize him properly?
He has to, and Darren Waller has to be the number one receiver on this team. Your starters right now, grab a barf bag, are Isaiah Hodgins and Paris Campbell in the slot and Darius Slayton, the 9-route guy, the home run route guy. Really? Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, and Isaiah
about
Hodgins.
Sterling Shepard, please.
Well, I mean, I know he's on the roster, but he's rehabbing not only from an Achilles, but an ACL. And frankly, I don't think Sterling Shepard has any good football left in him. He could prove me wrong, but I don't really know why the Giants brought him back. That move surprised me. I thought he'd be done in the NFL. And obviously you've got Wan'Dale Robinson coming off of an injury. Their wide receiver ranks are rather dull and lame. I would be very much in on DeAndre Hopkins if I were the New York Giants. I think, can you imagine him and Waller and then mixing and matching with those other guys? That works for me. To think that Daniel Jones can do more with less, like Drew Brees always did, like Peyton Manning always did, like Pat Mahomes did last year without Tyreek Hill, it's way too much to ask for Daniel Jones. He needs some big boys in that wide receiver room, and he doesn't have them, LA. He doesn't have them.
I agree. And that really hurts him. Let's move it over to Miami. Lots of talk about Tua, of course, the same conversation. He's got to stay healthy. I think Mike White going down there as a backup was a sweet move, great move for him. But I think if Tua stays healthy, Dolphins are going to be really good this year.
I think the Dolphins are going to be very good. I like their kind of no-name defense. And look, they have the fastest skill positions in the NFL when you talk about Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane. You got 4-4-3 guys right there. And they were a team, they were 3 games over 500 with Tua last year, I believe 8-5. He obviously had the head injuries. He was an MVP candidate mid-season before all the injuries started to hit. So I think Miami is going to pick up where they left off and be a formidable foe in the AFC. I've got them I believe 7th right now, Browns 6, Jets 5, Jacks 4, and then you've got the big 3 up top. But I do have the Miami Dolphins above the line. I gotta issue an apology here, LA. I completely mixed up Jarrett Stidham's team. He was on the Raiders last year. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. I just had a moment. Hoyer is their backup, so I mean they don't have a net. if Jimmy Garoppolo can't play for them, they literally are going to lose every single game. Jarrett Stidham in Denver backing up Russell Wilson. And, did they bring him in to put pressure on Russ? No, I don't think so. I think they just wanted a good backup QB because Russ makes too much money for too long, right? Russ is not in I got to play well or I'm going to lose my job mode. You know what I'm saying? Like, his contract's just too long.
And also the Waltons that own Walmart and everything else, they're fine financially, so they're going to be okay as well. You brought up the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a team we got to talk about because Evan Ingram is going to go so much higher than he did when I got made fun of drafting him last season. Trevor Lawrence got it together mid-season last year. I'm looking for another big season. You love Travis Etienne coming out of college. You already said that you rank what place did you see them coming in their division for the Jacksonville Jaguars?
They're going to win their division. In LA, I have them 4th overall in the AFC. I'm high on Jacksonville.
I think Calvin Ridley is almost forgotten how good he was. Had to take that little time off there for sports betting. Back in the fold, and I think he's an added great weapon for Trevor Lawrence.
I totally agree with that. I wonder if Calvin Ridley is going to emerge as the number 1 receiver there. I think a lot of people are assuming that. And if you watch Jacksonville play in and play out last year, you saw in the preseason last year the vibe to Trevor Lawrence and the connection that he has with Christian Kirk. And that played out last season. Christian Kirk's their slot. You know that I love my slots, LA. And so does Trevor Lawrence. Right. They got busy together last year. Calvin Ridley is more talented than Christian Kirk. There's more draft capital. He's a first-round pick, okay? But it's not really about that. It's about, do you form the connection with that quarterback? The other thing is, LA, Trevor Lawrence and Evan Ingram were like Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, okay? They were like Shaq and Kobe, right? Like, they knew how to work with each other. And so you've got Lawrence vibing with Kirk and vibing with Ingram, okay? So where does Ridley fit in all of that? Again, Ridley's not going to have 50 grabs for 600 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's not what I'm saying here. I think he's going to have a good stat line. But I just wonder if he's going to become that number 1 overall guy, number 1 target. And I kind of doubt that he is, LA. I think he's going to be really good, but I doubt he's going to emerge as that number 1 guy. How are you viewing that?
I think he could really emerge as that number 1 guy. But like you said, the connection was great with Kirk. What I love the most that Jacksonville did is they really prepared for the worst. They've got depth that they can rely on that a lot of other teams don't, right? So if your biggest complaint is, oh my gosh, Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram had such a great connection with Lawrence last season, now you bring in Ridley, okay, so they're all going to share the work a little bit. But if there's a man down, any one of them can step up and be as good, if not better, than the last.
You're absolutely right. Next man up. Jacksonville is deep. Look, Zay Jones had a nice year for them last year. Yep. Zay Jones was solid, and he's still going to be in their 3 wide sets, with Ingram. And I am concerned, LA, about all this talk about in Travis Etienne, welcoming other guys getting the rock at the running back position to reduce wear and tear, to keep him healthy, and all the load management stuff that drives us crazy. And you wonder if that's going to be just off-season chatter or something that's going to spill over to the regular season. You've got Tank Bigsby out in the 3rd round, a back out of Auburn that I do like. Hasty was the backup to him last year. They pick up Dearness Johnson. Here's the thing, LA. I like Tank Bigsby. I don't love Tank Bigsby, okay? He's a 3rd round running back, all right? 3rd round running backs are a dime a dozen around here. Travis Etienne is by far the most talented running back in that room. So if I were Doug Peterson, I would not be looking to cut down on reps for Travis Etienne. I would not. I'd be looking at him at 18 carries a game, 5 grabs a game, 23 touches a game, right in that bell cow wheelhouse. And I presume that's what we're going to get, LA, because frankly, the options behind Etienne just aren't that great. You know what I'm saying? They don't have a 2-headed monster at running back. They don't.
If you were to handcuff Etienne in a league, would you be going with Bisbee or Hasty?
I'd be going with Bigsby because there's more draft capital in him than Hasty. I believe they got Hasty as a free agent, basically off the scrap heap. And look, he's a mix and match back. He's a space back. He's not a between the tackles back. I don't even really know if he's a third down back. He's fast, can hit the hole, can hit a home run every once in a while, but I've never been a huge JaMychal Hasty guy. So Bigsby would be the handcuff with ETN. Yeah.
Mr. Scampers is super excited that you've got the Jags in the 4th. We're going to continue this conversation after a quick break. You're listening to Lisa Ann and Rick Kamla right here on Bettor Sports Live on the Bettor Sports Network.
So I grabbed DK Metcalf. I'm very, very curious as to hearing all three of your guys' takes on the Seattle situation now that they took Jackson Smith and Njigba, and where we see the target distribution going as far as this goes.
Yeah, the way I look at it is this. Jackson Smith and Njigba just became Chris Godwin, where when Chris Godwin joined the Bucs, they had Mike Evans and they had Deshaun Jackson. And Chris Godwin would come in and play slot in 3 wide receiver sets, but then he would come out of the field for 2 wide receiver sets. I think that's exactly what happens early on with the Seahawks. You have Metcalf and Lockett, JSN coming in. Lockett's 31, though, in September. So, like we saw with Chris Godwin, once he became the man in 2 wide receiver sets, it was wheels up. That might happen this year, might happen next year, but I don't think a guy like Metcalf is ever coming out of the game, so I have no problem with that pick here still.
Yeah, I just at the current ADP for like Jackson Smith and Njigba, I think it's a bit rich. You could probably see him coming off in like the 5th, even the 6th round. But Seattle ran the 6th lowest 11 personnel last year. I just worry when he's going to get on the field. Granted, he is going to get rotated in. You know, there's going to be times where maybe Lockett's out and he comes in or something like that. But they do run a lot of 12 personnel with 2 tight ends. So that's what I worry about with Jackson Smith and Njigba. I think he's a great dynasty pick. I just can't imagine him getting on the field too much where he's going to be able to pay off that specific ADP.
I agree completely. And then from another total wild card perspective, they got Charbonnet. So how hard are they going to establish the run versus how much are they going to pass? It's just so many questions in that offense.
Back right here, Lisa Ann and Rick Kamla right here on Bettor Sports Live. Loving all of you in the chat. Let's take a little breather and go through our what's more likely. You all can answer in the chat as well. The Heat or the Nuggets win the finals? Nuggets.
What's more likely is the Nuggets win. That's what's more likely. What's more likely has not mattered to the Miami Heat. They have 6 road wins in these playoffs. They're 6-4 on the road. They're defying analytics, projections, speculations, everything. It's LA. This is one of the most magical things I've ever seen in covering the NBA. In terms of what we're seeing on the wood does not marry with the statistics. It doesn't. This team, they should not be doing what they're doing. They don't have Tyler Hero. They don't have Victor Oladipo. It doesn't matter.
Well, let's go to that one next. What's more likely, Tyler Hero returns game 3 or earlier?
Okay, LA, I want to bounce a theory off of you because this is a what's more likely that's conditional. I believe Miami is going to play the scoreboard with Tyler Hero. And the report is that Chris Haynes reported that the likely target is game 3 back at home. We know that NBA players like to return at home versus the road. It's just more comfortable. And I've talked to a bunch of ball players, and they're always like, yeah, I want to return home. Usually in the regular season, LA, they save a home game against a bad team to bring you back so you feel very, very good. Obviously, you don't have that luxury right now. Yeah. I believe that if Miami wins game 1, then Tyler Hero will not play in game 2 and he will be back in game 3. I believe that if Miami loses game 1, he will come back for game 2 in advance of game 3 because the Heat would be like.
Are the first 2 in Denver?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So Miami would be like, yo, we don't want to go down 0-2. Look, Tyler Hero had a fractured hand, okay? He's been cleared. He could play in game 1. Frankly, I don't understand why he isn't, okay? He has had a hand injury. He's been able to run and jump and do cardio and do all of this kind of stuff. He just wasn't able to shoot with his right hand, okay? Now his right hand is healthy. It's firm, cleared for contact, cleared for the whole thing. So I think they're going to play the scoreboard here. I think they're going to try to win game 1 without him. And if they don't, then we're going to see Tyler Hero in game 2.
Jimmy Butler or the Joker win the finals MVP?
So I got Butler at a plus 330. Jokic is a minus 360. I just don't agree with how prohibitively chalky Denver is. Miami's getting no credit here. So Jimmy Butler has no shot of winning finals MVP. So at a minus 400 for Denver to win this series. Miami has no shot of winning this series. It's just not right. Miami absolutely has a shot. They won game 7 in Boston when nobody thought they would, except your boy. I just don't get it, LA. And I understand the love and the hype for Denver. They're a fantastic basketball team. They've never done this before. They haven't. Okay. And that matters to me. Why do the Buffalo Bills lose every year? Because they're the Buffalo Bills. Why do the Chargers lose every year? Because they're the Chargers. Why do the Browns lose every year? Because they're the Browns. Why do the Vikings lose every year? Because they're the Vikings. Okay. You can't a lot of times run from your history. And if Denver wins, it will be a monstrous breakthrough for them, okay? Since coming to the ABA, they haven't even made the NBA Finals, all right? Let alone
oh my gosh, there's no banners in their arena,
None.
Ball Arena. It's all hockey. It's all
They
the
got a
abs.
bunch of banners in Miami, though, LA. They got a bunch of them, okay? I'm just saying, I think that matters. Experience, but just the vibe of the franchise. Miami is like, this ain't nothing but a thing. Eric Spoelstra's been in like a bunch of finals and a bunch of conference finals. This is where they live, man. Very comfortable here. Denver's never been here in this high altitude, pun intended and included.
Caleb Martin or Gabe Vincent is the most productive role player for Miami in the finals?
Ooh, I'm going to go with Gabe Vincent. I think Caleb Martin's going to come back to earth in this series because I think Denver's going to guard him honestly. Versus Boston playing drop coverage on Caleb Martin. Stupid as heck. And so I think they're going to play him straight up. I think Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is going to be on Caleb Martin a lot. And obviously that's going to change and a lot of switching and stuff like that. But the bottom line is, whether it's Jamal Murray, whether it's Aaron Gordon, whether it's Michael Porter Jr., somebody's going to be with Caleb Martin. They're not just going to stare at him from basically the free throw line saying, we dare you to make that shot. Oh, he hit us again. We dare you to make that. Oh, he hit us again. Denver's not going to be that dumb. They're going to get out there and guard him. And Gabe Vincent, LA, I believe is going to take a bite out of Jamal Murray on the defensive end. And Gabe Vincent has turned into a borderline knockdown shooter here in these playoffs at about 38%. He averaged 17 a game against Boston. He's a sneaky good player that I think is going to be on a big stage, and a lot of people are going to realize that.
The Celtics run it back next season or trade Jaylen Brown or Marcus Smart?
Could you answer your question to me first here? I would love to hear what you say about this. I don't know, LA, if you're mama bear to either of these two great young players, two guys that I personally love, especially Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown is one of Cam's homies. Big fan. So would you run it back if you were Rick Grossbeck, the owner of the Celtics? Would you run it back?
I would, only because of the situations that went down behind the scenes for the Celtics that had nothing to do with the players themselves, but did cause a little bit of chaos, right? Transition. You're taking a coach from the end of the bench and expecting him to coach a team even this far, I think was shocking, and that was the thing with Miami was I'm like, the Celtics, it doesn't matter that they were the number 1 seed for the entire season. They're truly going to get out coached, which, again, it was a fluky last 2 games as well. But I think the best thing is to run it back as is and not trade Jaylen Brown or Marcus Smart.
So I think I agree with everything you said. What's more likely here is they run it back. I mean, are you going to trade Jaylen Brown to Atlanta? Not yet. Are you going to trade Jaylen Brown to Washington for Bradley Beal to bring the St. Louis connection with Beal and Tatum up there in Boston? I don't think so. They have to pay Jaylen Brown a whole bleep ton of money to keep him, but that's what I would do. And I think Boston's going to run it back. Why wouldn't you? You have built-in excuses for why you lost this year. You had a rookie head coach who made a bunch of mistakes. Okay, he'll fix them. We'll be better in that area next year. Malcolm Brogdon had a right elbow injury, has one that might need surgery. He won Sixth Man of the Year. He had a fantastic playoffs up until that point. That's a built-in excuse. Jason Tatum lands on Gabe Vincent's foot on the first offensive possession of Game 7, and he's not the same since. You have that built-in excuse. Jaylen Brown had a mysteriously awful playoff run. You have that as a built-in excuse, and you can rely on all the previous history with him. So you've got all these built-in excuses. Why wouldn't you bring it back? And by the way, their roster's really, really good, LA. It is. That's why they were the favorites to win the finals going into the conference finals.
Next up, now I heard Greeny entertains me. You know, I love listening to Greeny in the morning.
That's your boy.
And one of the things he said this morning was he asked everybody in the room, how many more days are you going to take me making this bad joke about the Sixers going from a doctor to a nurse, which I giggled at, and everyone told him he has a week left to make that joke, that it's no longer going to be funny. So they went from doc to the nurse. Did the Sixers hit a home run with Nick Nurse or only a double?
Hit a grand slam home run.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say something provocative, like they might actually win a championship now, but I think James Harden's still going to be on their roster. So that flushes that whole thing right there. James Harden is like, he's the allergen to winning a championship. If he is on your team, you're not winning the championship. It's just fact.
But he does have the option to leave, and there has been some conversation of him going back home to Houston, believe it or not.
Right. I believe it's all a leverage play to get Daryl Morey to max him out. I don't believe he's actually going to go back to Houston. There are reports that say otherwise. It's not my personal belief on it. We shall see. I think he's going to be in Philadelphia. But LA, going to Nick Nurse here. Nick Nurse is a mastermind. He is probably the 6th best coach in the NBA right now. Top 5 being Greg Popovich, Eric Spoelstra. 3 would be like Steve Kerr, 4 would be Tyronn Lue, and 5 would probably be Rick Carlisle. And then 6 right there is a guy like Nick Nurse. He's a stud. He is a mad scientist like our boy Matt Deutsch. He pushes a lot of buttons, and he's very, very clever and very smart and creative and not afraid to try different things. And guess what, LA? Doc Rivers got fired because he did not make enough adjustments, and because that's not a strength of his. Doc brings a lot of other stuff to his sideline. Adjustments is not one of them. And by the way, Nick Nurse won a championship with the Rio Grande Valley Vipers back in like 2017 or 2018 when he was under Daryl Morey in Houston. So that whole thing marries. But LA, Nick Nurse won a championship with the Toronto freaking Raptors, okay? Like one of the most extraordinary, hard to see championships we've ever had in this league. Okay, so why can't he have success in Philly? I think it's a grand slam home run, LA. He was the best coach on this coaching carousel. You kept him away from Milwaukee, one of your rivals. You kept him out of Phoenix, okay? A team that you might meet in the NBA Finals. So it's a defense play as well.
Yeah, it was a good defense play as well. I'll agree with you on that. All right. What's more likely over here, the Chiefs or the Bills win the DeAndre Hopkins sweepstakes?
Boy, it's what's more likely is the Chiefs. What are we waiting for here? Let's make this happen. I know the Chiefs don't have a lot of dough, and it's going to be kind of that decision for Nuke Hopkins. Do you take maybe a little bit less money to go to Kansas City, maybe win that ring, and go the Juju Smith-Schuster route, or do you go to another team that's just got the biggest bag for you? I certainly wouldn't tell a dude what to do with his money. I just can speak for myself and my evaluation of the NFL. There is not a team that needs Nuke Hopkins more than the Kansas City Chiefs. And we can go to some of the wide receiver rooms around the league, right? Not crazy about the New York Giants wide receiver room. Not crazy about the Green Bay Packers wide receiver room.
Not only that, if you're DeAndre Hopkins, you're not crazy about the quarterbacks as well in those rooms either.
Good
so
call.
Patrick Mahomes provides you with the, most direct route to where you want to go. which
Yeah,
is the
I mean,
championship.
Tennessee has a huge need for a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. Oh, great. So I can go play with Ryan Tannehill, who's about to lose his job, right? And then I got Will Levis misfiring at me. The Atlanta Falcons badly need DeAndre Hopkins. Their wide receiver room right now is headed up. They're 3-pack. They're 3-wide set right now. It's Drake London. Cool. All right. Scotty Miller and Matt Collins. What? How does Fontenot, the GM in Atlanta, think that that's enough and good enough?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yet they think they're going to be a playoff team this year. Okay. Go get Nuke Hopkins. But again, would Nuke Hopkins want to play with Desmond Ridder and or Taylor Heineke? Probably not. So I think the most likely LA is the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm going to be bothered if he ends up signing with another team. I really am.
Okay, so then I'm going to ask you, what's more likely? You're D-Hop, okay? Do you chase the bag or do you chase the ring?
I'm chasing the ring, LA. I'm chasing the ring. I'm not chasing the bag here. I'm chasing for 1 year, LA. 1 year. Okay, I'm going David West on this thing. Remember, he left a bunch of money on the table with Indiana, went to San Antonio, didn't win a ring there, went ring chasing at Golden State and got 2. That's what – you don't even have to do all that. Just do it for 1 year. Just do it for 1 year. And next offseason, they'll treat you like Juju Smith-Schuster and they'll throw flowers and money at you. And look, LA, I'm not leaving $10 million on the table about this, okay? I want to make this perfectly clear. I'm saying go for the ring over the bag if the difference is $2 million, $3 million, and I know that's easy for me to throw this money around, but Nuke Hopkins has been one of the highest paid wide receivers in the history of the NFL for like a decade now. You know what I mean? Like, if he's taking care of his money, he should have some optionality here.
You're right. You're totally right there. Last one right here. DeAndre Hopkins still has it, or is he washed up? I'm going to answer first. I think he got a nice vacation in Arizona and that he is fresh legs and wants to go out there. The plays that I remember the most about DeAndre Hopkins is when he just gets that massive separation and you can't even believe he's like, it's a Hail Mary situation. He's in the scrump and he gets that separation and makes that play happen. Those are DeAndre Hopkins moments, but those moments rely on a really good quarterback.
They do. And again, if you are ring chasing, you're going to go to a team that's got a really good quarterback. So there's that. And by the way, LA, if you take the short-term instant gratification of going to an Atlanta or going to a Tennessee or going to a Green Bay with Jordan Love, teams that need you, but teams that don't have ready-made quarterbacks. Okay, will you get busy enough with that developing quarterback
to pad your stats,
to pad your stats, and really make that cash in the next offseason? Or will teams put you in that box and sort of stat shame you and go, yep, that's what I thought. He's done. He can't separate anymore. He's washed. He's cooked. Yep. He had, 60 grabs for 750 yards and 7 touchdowns with Jordan Love, right? Yep, I knew it. He's washed. And so that'll depress his market next offseason. No. Go to a good team with a good quarterback. Get busy. The money will be there for you next year. But if you take the Insta bag right now, you may actually hurt your stock heading into the next offseason.
And he did just that by pushing this move because it was not helping his stats at all staying in Arizona. He knew it wasn't going to get any better. We all know by this day and age, if you're drafting Kyler Murray, he's going to be out by week 10, right? He's going to have a strong season. He rushes. He does everything you want for the first 4 weeks. Then it starts to get a little bit concerning. He doesn't have the arm. I don't think he has the vision because of his height. And he could never utilize D-Hop the way D-Hop needed to be utilized.
I agree with all of that. I don't think Kyler Murray is going to play football this year. I thought that throughout the entire offseason, but now that Nuke isn't going to be there, and I mean, the roster is awful. It is literally freaking awful. I don't think he's going to play football this year. He's a guy that doesn't play at less than 100%. Again, you know how I feel about that. And now he's coming off of an ACL. And I think he's going to take a page out of the NBA. Kawhi Leonard, Jamal Murray, right? They had ACLs. They could have hurried back a little bit for the playoffs, but they said, nah, we'll get him next year. And they took that entire season off. When the math worked out at the 9-month range, the 11th month range, the 12th month range to come back for the play, they still didn't. They still sat out. So I think Kyler Murray is going to play the NBA card, play the player empowerment card here, be like, nah, I just don't feel quite right. Maybe even citing, I got a mental hurdle that I can't get over. But I don't think he's going to see the football field this year. And I think that's going to be on him. I think he is going to be like, yeah, I'm good on 2023 with this like bad news Bears team you have set up here in Arizona. I don't think he's playing it down this year.
So who they have behind Kyler Murray in Arizona for the Cardinals is Colt McCoy, who also has a questionable tag, Clayton Tune, and David Blau.
So I like Clayton Tune. I do. In a very, very deep rookie quarterback way. Okay, let me stress that. I like him more than Max Duggan. I like him more than Tanner McKee. I like him more than Jack Hayner. I like him more than like that sort of that third tier of the rookie quarterbacks coming out. I like Stetson Bennett more than I like the individual that we're talking about right now. But that's where I'm at on it. I'm just Clayton Tune. Look, he's got good size. He's got a strong arm. He's got an accurate arm. He went off statistically at Houston, so he's used to throwing the rock. Obviously, Tank Dell, who's now a Texan, was his primary target there with the Cougs. But look, I like him, but it's the whole thing's going to be a disaster. It really is. Colt McCoy.
How about James Conner? Do you feel James Conner has any value this season? No, you're out on James Conner too?
Completely out on James Conner. Half man, half a season, even when things are cooking. I like James Conner. I think he's a talented back. He's a really, really good, inside the 5-yard line, get a touchdown type of guy. Had a huge touchdown year 2 years ago. Nope. I see an injury happening here, revolving door at running back. It's just going to be a bunch of yuck in Arizona this year. And even my boy and their play-by-play man, Dave Pasch, knows this. He wouldn't admit it, but he knows
it's not looking up for the Arizona Cardinals for sure. But I really was hoping, like earlier today, I heard somebody say, I think we'll have new news in the next 12 hours. I was like, oh, that would be great. I would love to be talking about DeAndre Hopkins landing somewhere on the show and breaking it down.
Oh, yeah.
I get all of it. For some reason, I just have this feeling that he would just be so ideal back with Deshaun Watson. I think being in Cleveland, I think that's going to be a pretty winning team. I think that would but there's not a guarantee in Cleveland like there is in Kansas City. So I totally get it.
Yeah, but I mean, if Cleveland has $11 million for this year and Kansas City has $6 million, go to Cleveland, right? Like you're making more money. Cleveland is totally viable for the playoffs. I don't look at them as a Super Bowl contender like KC, but that's okay. Like you could have a really good year with Deshaun Watson. You could help Cleveland make the playoffs, which I think would surprise a lot of people. And hey, how about this? Maybe you play so well for the Browns that they want to keep you and re-sign you, and you stay with your buddy Deshaun Watson for another 2 or 3 years, You
never know, right? Let's recap with the room. Better Boss, everyone tell us what do you see happening in this series? We all know from earlier in this show, but I'm going to recap mine. I've got Denver in 5, and I've got Denver winning tomorrow night. Rick?
I've got Miami in 7. And it's stat based and matchup based and all that. It's also whimsical based. It's just Miami. It has not mattered that they are out talented by the other team. It has not mattered. Okay. And people could say, well, Denver's a different animal than this team. Really? The Milwaukee Bucks? Most people had the Milwaukee Bucks winning the whole thing. And they won 1 game against the Miami Heat. Okay.
Better Boss is picking Denver, but he's rooting for Miami. So there's a conflict. He's conflicted. And he has Spoelstra as the MVP. Byron says Nuggets in 5. So Byron's right there with me too. I love that Better Boss is going to be rooting for a team, but picking another team. That's the most Better Boss thing I've ever heard.
It is. It's the old head versus heart. And we know that Matt Deutsch is smart. So, I mean, the head is going to prevail with the prediction, but he can still kind of root for the other side. And I wonder if, like, for Better Boss, there's going to be the playing inside the number aspect with a game 1 with an 8.5-point spread. But, talent to me hasn't been a problem for Miami. Oh, by the way, they're going to get Tyler Hero back. 20 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists with fantastic shooting in the regular season. They're just going to parachute him in to the NBA Finals. And I don't think people are really calculating that enough. I think people are used to Lowry and Vincent and Strus and Duncan Robinson and Caleb Martin. And, oh, yeah, Tyler Herro is a really freaking good player. And I think he's going to send a charge into this team and help them take some of the defensive attention off Jimmy Butler, ease the pressure on Bam Adebayo to get 20 every game. I think it's just going to make life easier for everybody on his team when he comes back. I don't think Aaron Gordon is going to put a blanket on Jimmy Butler. Aaron Gordon didn't put a blanket on LeBron, who had 28, 9, and 10 in the series, or Durant, who had 29, 10, and 5 against Aaron Gordon in that second round series. I think Jimmy Butler's numbers are going to be fine. I really do. And like I've told you, LA, I think Gabe Vincent is going to be a problem for Jamal Murray. And I'm not saying he's going to shrink down to 18 points a game, but I don't think he's going to score 28 points per game against Gabe Vincent.
Well, we will have to keep tabs with all of this. And I'm not going to, I'm just stating my case, but please do me the solid of making sure that you also watch and witness what Rocky does out there, the most amazing mascot. For everyone in the room, I am taking the summer off. I'm not all about the baseball life like all of you. By the way, the only hockey game I went to this season was a Panthers game, and look at the Panthers Stanley Cup. This is amazing. Like I have become your lucky rabbit's foot that you used to have on your keychain. These teams now, the Nuggets, the Panthers, people should be sending me nice tickets next year to go to all of their games that I want to go to. But I will be taking 2 months off from the show right here back before, by the way, Heavy T already wants me to go to an Atlanta Falcons game. I don't think I have to plan. I got to plant myself where there's actually a chance. Between travel. So at this time next week, I will be at Athens, Greece. I just got invited to go and do a campaign in Norway and Scandinavia. So I'm going to enjoy the summer of travel while I also work my tan. And then I'll also be drafting. I'll be prepared. But when we get back together, it's going to be so much football talk. And this is the perfect time to just kind of decompress after the NBA Finals.
This is dynasty draft season. I'm in a dynasty draft right now.
Is it a slow draft?
It's a very, very slow draft. You would hate it. You would absolutely hate this draft. Where are we right now? We are in the 5th round and the 3rd pick, and we're at the point now where it's so barren and there's really nobody left that people are just like, all right, F it. I don't even care who I get. So they're not even like sticking around and making sure that they draft on time. They're letting the whole clock go without making a pick. So it is what it is. I'm not mad at anybody about that. Brian Breesy just went. Oh, wait a minute. I'm in the wrong league. It's the Sirius XM IDP Dynasty League. I was on the North Conference. I'm in the South Conference, LA. And let's see here. Where are we at? Yep. Still no pick. Jana 4th and Inches podcast has 14 hours left to draft.
Oh my gosh. How long is this
14 hours
clock?
left, LA.
How long is this clock? Is it a full 24 hours?
The clock is too long.
Okay, that's outrageous.
But it's okay. I don't care.
Well, thank you, Mr. Scampers, for wishing me good time. You guys will all be able to follow all of my adventures, of course, on my social media at The Real Lisa Ann. Rick, I will be checking in with you and all of your multiple baseball leagues. Byron's going to Minnesota for the Prince celebration. Have a great vacation. You guys all have a great vacation. Heavy T, I appreciate everything from you. Rick, we got to be on the text during these finals because, I'm going to have to remind you all the time how good Denver really is and how fresh they feel. But it's going to be awesome. Better Boss, I cannot wait to come back and see all of you. Oh, we just reached our 100 messages and our restream, but it's been awesome. This is normally when I like to bow out because baseball these 2 months, it's not exciting enough for me. I need a little break.
Yeah, baseball definitely stirs my drink this time of year. I'm loving it. People say you have 10 leagues and all this guy. It's like 15 minutes a day. It's like watering your garden. That's all it is. I don't actually water anything.
Well,
I just go through
you keep watering your garden. We'll keep up with all of you. Thank you all for being here tonight. Make sure you're still watching all of the other shows, following at Bettor Network. Heavy T, you rock. Lisa Ann and Rick Kamla, Bettor Sports Live on the Bettor Sports Network. Thanks for joining us, everybody.